Charger.
Which one of our family members?
Is there going to be a presentation or something?
order. We've got 6 trustees present and Ms. Hanson attending electronically, I guess. And so we've got a quorum. We can move forward. We've got a section for public forum. We have 1 speaker signed up to speak. Ms. Seaton? It's up to you. It'd probably up here would be best. We'll move Mr. Barton so we keep our distances.
Good morning, Board of Trustees and members of SMCISD. Susan Seaton, Texas State Teachers Association, SMCISD educators. First and foremost, I want to say thank you, especially to the administration for their hard work and lots of sleepless nights. And I don't think you hear thank yous a lot of times, but I'm hearing it from our members and I'm hearing it from our teachers and our families that the communication and the transparency has been wonderful. And I want you to know, in times that are scary like this, we appreciate it more than you know. The board, you know, we know it's up to y'all to make hard decisions and to send, you know, our district in the direction that it needs. So we also want to say thank you to you, because I know y'all aren't sleeping a lot either, like us. The main reason I wanted to speak today is because I've been hearing from a lot of families that are impacted by this, and I'm so glad that we have the meal service going. But the overwhelming response that I've heard is that trying to get multiple children in vehicles twice a day to pick up breakfast and lunch is too difficult. And I did talk to Mr. Boone, and I think y'all are going to talk about it today. They would much rather only have to get their kids out 1 time a day to pick up meals and stuff. And I know there's several other districts are doing it to where when they go to pick up their lunch, it already has breakfast for the next day in there. And that way you only have to hold the food sites one time a day, and the parents only have to get their kids out 1 time a day, which would, you know, especially if you're a family with multiple kids, and even if one of them gets sick, that's going to be incredibly hard to get them out twice a day. So I would ask you to look at and see if there's any way that we could make it, you know, as easy as possible, because, you know, our babies that we love, you know, we didn't get to say bye to our, you know, kids that day when we left because we didn't know. So we, as, you know, teaching and learning, are working on that, and I think we have a great plan in place for that. But, you know, let's help these parents, and let's help our staff members that have kids that just don't know where the direction is, and let's try to make it as easy as possible in this transition. So again, I wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Seaton. As our only speaker today, we can move to item number 3, discussion and action regarding modification of school calendar and work days due to school closure caused by COVID-19 and matters related thereto. Mr. Superintendent? You've modified the schedule. What additional action do we need to take today with regard to the schedule modifications you've already put in place?
We won't need to modify the schedule at all. They're not going to go past the date. That's what we've been told by TEA. So the modifications will be in our graduation, the way we graduate students. They basically, for this year, have allowed everybody to be under an individual graduation committee. So, I mean, I hate that we have this pandemic, but it could benefit some of our students who have had trouble, that are freshmen and sophomores and lack some tests. It'll give us some leeways in working with them and getting them through potentially. But basically every student for this year that takes a high school EOC test will be considered under the IGC committee. What we don't know yet is, you know, will graduation be impacted? You know, when is the return date? That we don't know. We try and give out information, Mr. Fernandez, as quickly as we can, as we get it. Every day I'm on a conference call with Commissioner Morath, and every day he changes a little bit. He's created kind of a FAQ for COVID-19, and he's addressing everything we're addressing. And so as we know, we push that out to the community as quickly as we can. But as far as the calendar, I know that was out in the community that maybe we'd go 2 months longer. No, we won't go 2 months longer. The way we're taking it is accountability is suspended, and we just wait to hear about graduation and everything else from Texas State and places like that.
And by that you mean whether we can still have it at Strahan?
Correct.
And what about access for kids to campuses while campuses are closed. If they left items or, they all left in a rush Friday, it's possible they could have a Chromebook or something on campus, right?
So when principals, the essential personnel will be returning on Monday. We actually have a Zoom conference, what is happening right now. I will do kind of what the commissioner is doing with the teachers and the administrators. So we've sent that invitation out to all our teaching staff and to our administrators and our counselors, and then just talk through the next 10 days, and then let the principals work with each of their campuses to start messaging to their families how they want those items to be attended to. We would prefer, if we have to get in a vehicle, we get in a vehicle and drive the computer home as opposed to anybody else. We meaning cabinet members, because we'll be at work. So, I mean, we're spare bodies, and Mr. Boone doesn't want us at his feeding sites. He wants us doing other stuff. He wants us doing other things. So Monday we'll know more. We'll see how many teachers respond, but they'll have the capability of asking questions to us, and so we can start building a platform. So we'll have cabinet with the entire district.
Okay.
Start figuring it out.
And so at this point, there's not a date for return for staff?
There is not a date for return. From what we're hearing, it's going to be a minimum of 8 weeks. For staff. Teaching staff will be at home.
Working from home?
Correct. Principals, assistant principals, and counselors will be working on campus to start the plans.
8 weeks from Monday.
Well, they'll be working starting Monday, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Return for students is what I was.
So we're looking at 8 weeks.
We're looking at a minimum of 8 weeks where essential personnel will be in the building working with their faculties to deliver at-home learning, I would say.
Okay. Other questions from trustees with regard to calendar and schedule issues? Mr. Arredondo.
Thank you, President McLaughlin. Since we're agendized on item 3 for modification of school calendar and work days, as an individual trustee, to assure that, to provide some assurance to our employees that contracted days are not being cut, or that hourly days are not being cut, I would be comfortable with ratifying that we are guaranteeing those work days and those contracts and those hourly Monday through Friday schedules to be like as originally projected. So essentially affirming that our calendar is what it is, our work days are what they are, that by action of the board is guaranteeing them pay for those days, and that they won't see a reduction in what they had normally been contracted to work or scheduled to work.
Right, yeah, they're not, but we do deal with that specifically in item 5 on pay employee compensation due to school closure. Was there something that item 5 doesn't cover that you wanted to handle up now?
I just think reaffirming that our school calendar remains the same and that work days remain the same is an assurance that we're not going to change that later on.
Okay.
Well, the action taken here is modification, and we're not modifying anything.
No.
So, no. I mean, I don't think, unless you're modifying something,
No.
right? No? I think it takes care of itself.
Yeah, no, we're not modifying any employees' calendar.
So Ms. Baez, is that from an HR perspective, do you need anything from us with regard to the school calendar and what Mr. Arredondo's concern? Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Arredondo, on this item? Anyone else? Okay. Item 4, district's plan affecting, this is a big one, instruction, operations, student staff due to COVID-19 pandemic and matters related thereto. Mr. Superintendent.
So I think it'd probably be easier if we start with Dr. Reese Mills and then just go to Mr. Barton for operations,
Okay.
and then HR can jump in as they need to.
Yeah, so currently, we have 10 days worth of review lessons that teachers have been given access to. We'll have 2 on the website. Parents will be able to go, and Mr. Fernandez will also send it out by grade level, where parents will just see some lessons that students can work at home, they can write it down, they can just do review. The second option will be those same lessons but embedded too with different types of physical activity, like YouTube video of some dancing or some running in place with brain breaks built in, because we know this is a time too where parents are trying to keep their children active. We're recommending no more than 30 minutes per content area as we familiarize ourselves with this new blended learning option. And so when teachers start logging in during the week, we also will have videos on how they can use Google Classroom and Canvas, which are two of the platforms that we already utilize within the district. Some teachers are more familiar with it than others, so we're going to have some trainings on that as well. For students that do not have technology currently at home, that will be a discussion between the family and the campus principal, but we will also make available hard packets for the students to do, and then if families want to just take a picture of the document and email it to the teacher from their home, they can also do that. So right now we're currently working on a 15-page remote learning plan. The principals have access to it, and that's what we've been working on the last 48 hours. And so addressing the technology, the instruction, making sure that we're contacting our parents via school status so it's documented, and speaking to students, and also setting up office hours via virtually or via phone. So if students have questions or families have questions, they can contact either the campus administrator or go to the campus teacher for their child in that content area. So that's what we're working on right now.
Okay, and then Mr. Barton?
Our finance department is considered essential staff. They will be in starting Monday morning. We have payroll to get out for this month, and we'll continue to work that team throughout there at essential staff. Our operations department is cleaning whatever areas are utilized each day, whether it's just the office or the kitchen. We'll continue to clean all those areas. With the entire campuses have already had a full clean this week. Child nutrition obviously is functioning on the proper amount of staff for the job at hand. Right now we're looking at 2 campuses. Should that change, we'll bring in more staff, but right now Mr. Boone is working with his leaders primarily, and not his full teams, but I think his cafeteria managers are making up the teams right now. The other departments are, as the plan evolves and it changes daily, the operations team is on call, and we will we'll meet the need, whatever it looks like each day.
Same with the HR department, we're all on Monday, all been working to try to contact employees via service, be open to their emails and their phone calls. They'll all be back on Monday as well.
Okay, I think there'll probably be a gazillion questions on this topic, but right off the bat, do we have, Mr. Reese-Mills, as far as special education, children who get additional services, do we have an alternate plan for those children?
So currently, yesterday we had a phone call, Ms. Mariano and myself, I met with Denise Hayes, which is our special education attorney, and one of the things that we're going to have to send out to families is a notice for an amended ARD and IEP on what instruction will look like during this time in blended model through this blended model. For our students that receive ACL, we're looking at potentially doing videos and just seeing how we could administer that type of support during this time. We do have students that receive in-home instruction, and so we're having to work through the attorney. So today, Ms. Mariano is on a conference call with Region 13, and then tomorrow we'll be on a conference call with T-Case, and they're going to be providing the recommendations on how that support needs to look. So that is still a conversation that's changing every day.
So for the people that don't know, T-Case is like the state version of, for superintendents for special education. They're the state governing, do all the professional development.
And then at the high school, are you presently intending for the 4th grading period, that we would just be beginning on Monday to have a grade in each scheduled class that would go on their transcript pursuant to the distance learning?
Yes, so with the distance learning, once we have the meeting with the teachers, we are still going to ask that they have a minimum of 2 grades inputted every 10 days. That can look like the instruction that they assign either virtually or the packet. And so that's how it's going to look. It may not be, 20 grades in one course over the course of the next 9 weeks. It's going to be more of a hands-on learning, take a video of yourself, explain this topic. So we're having to work through that as well, but there will be some grades on there. It's really going to be participation and project-based learning.
Okay, Ms. Halsey.
Thank you. I have a number of questions, so I'll just go through them one at a time. My first one is, are we going to set up a central tech support line for parents and students to be able to call in and resolve those issues?
I think Greg is behind scenes, but yes, we'll have our
Yes.
tech support, yes.
So one central phone number that people can call in and there'll be
Yes.
multiple people operating that?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. Then my second question is, exactly when should students be expecting to hear from their classroom teachers?
I would say Thursday, because we want to go through the training of the videos. We want teachers to feel comfortable with what they're going to do. But come Thursday, students will be hearing from their teachers with, okay, this is how we're going to roll this out, by this campus and our class. We will be putting the lessons out that TLA and the instructional coaches developed. We'll be putting those out on Tuesday, just so parents will have something to start reviewing with their students, because we don't want an extended loss of learning time. So,
Somebody's at the door. If they can go get it, please.
so that will be on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. And my third question is really 2 parts. I think that the plans, as y'all have developed, sound great, and I appreciate it. I know that you've been working very diligently on them, and I think they'll work particularly well with our secondary students who already have one-to-one devices and are, familiar with using Google Hangouts and Google Classrooms, et cetera, et cetera. But our elementary school students don't have devices, and so I wonder how we are going to approach that and how we are planning to also provide pen and pencil materials and lessons, and how we're going to get everybody connected.
So the packets that will be created are going to model exactly what a student would receive online, right? So if I have online lessons developed for my classroom, then I've got to make sure that the packet resembles that, so the same type of learning is occurring. What we'll do is parents will be able to email the teacher, and once we've established who's going to need hard packets, between I'm just making up times here, between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. If I need to go to Hernandez Elementary, I've worked it out with the teacher. It's for you at the front office. You come, there's limited interaction, and you receive the packet. Then they can either bring the packet back, or they can take pictures of the lesson and send them via telephone, email them, but we'll work on that. Some of the resources that students will have access to, whether it's on their telephone or if they have an iPad at home, any type of device, we do have a Dreambox, we have Lexia, we have the brain breaks that they can do. All of those are adaptive, and so as students are doing that as well, then the teacher will be able to check, like, oh, Monica got online and did this, so they know that I'm also learning. So we're working through that, and that's going to be part of the conversation on Monday, and what principals have been adding to the remote learning plan on how to address that.
Okay, and are we also planning on distributing materials when we're delivering meals?
We can do that as well. We discussed that earlier today, that when we have the meals, if a parent comes up and says, my child's in 2nd grade, here's your 2nd grade packet.
Okay, I think that would be helpful. And I also am aware that the Census Committee has put together a number of activities for kids that they would be willing to distribute with our meal services. So if we could talk to them, that would be great, and find out what they have and how we could do that, because I think that, I'm hearing from a lot of parents who are concerned about keeping kids occupied and about limiting screen time, right? So the more we can provide in that way, I think the better, and especially if we can make it about the greater good with the community and the census, so. Thanks.
Ms. Cantu?
I'm concerned about those students that had lost credit. Will we have anything in particular to help them recoup their credit, or is that gonna kind of be?
They'll have Edgenuity. So we'll have Edgenuity, which is what the students would be working on now if they had lost, or if they've lost credit. And so just making sure they have the device and giving them access so they can complete those assignments, and also going to some sort of portfolio method as we start looking at the IGC if the student is scheduled to graduate in 2020.
My second question has to do with scheduling for next year. Have y'all kind of started thinking about how that's going to happen? Because you're going to blink and it's going to be time to schedule people for next year and work on master schedule and all that.
So we received the course selection cards, and counselors had already been inputting, so they'll continue inputting those, and the master schedule will go on as planned. We've had master schedule training. Again, a lot of that is done electronically, and so counselors and assistant principals and principals can do that from any area because we've already got the information inputted.
Okay. My other question's for Mr. Barton. So what will happen with construction during this time? Will they continue to work, or what's?
We are open for them to work. They've got to navigate their own issues with subcontractors and how each company handles the different challenges they have. But we are, our work site is open, especially in the areas where students are obviously not present. We're finishing off the CTE building this week and making a strong push there. And then moving forward at Miller, they may adjust their phasing with students in or not in the building, depending on how this evolves.
I'm good.
I'm gonna make it, and then we'll come back. Ms. Costilla?
Dr. Ruiz-Mills, regarding the dissemination of information to students by teachers, I'm assuming that since not all parents might have access to that, there will be a means that they will get that information for their students.
Yes.
And will it be delivered to them, or are they going to be told to come and pick it up? What is?
So they'll have two options, just like Mr. Cardona spoke earlier about the technology. If they're unable to make arrangements to come and pick it up during the designated time, then we cabinet members will also go and deliver the materials.
Okay, but all parents will get that information one way or the other about getting, accessing. That's important that since we're gonna not be in school, they're not gonna be in school, that the instruction continues in some form or fashion, and that all the children are gonna have that information. The parents will know the means and what course plans are in there for them to finish and whatever, so they will
Yes,
have
ma'am.
that.
So once we finalize that, Mr. Fernandez, he won't say much about it, but like Facebook for us, once he pushed out the message last week about closing, within an hour, it had hit 32,000 people. So when we push out how to do the homework or how to get it, it'll get to the right people. Like, we were shocked at how quickly that messaging system got.
But there is a system in place for those
Correct.
that, for whatever reason, cannot have
Correct.
access
Yes.
to electronic means.
So one of in the plan that the principals have helped create, one of the things is that if they haven't heard from me electronically and they haven't received a packet, and we've gone 3 days and it's like I haven't heard from Monica, then the principal will then either go make a home visit, make a phone call,
Okay.
and that's how we're going to keep tabs.
I like that. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so Ms. Hanson, as we try this out, has sent a question of how will parents with no home internet service find out where they can access internet service?
That's
fine.
Mr. Hubenak.
So we've been in contact with all of the providers in the area, Grande, CenturyLink, as well as Spectrum, which is formerly Time Warner. And they all have the ability to install service, and most of them are probably going to have some sort of program. The district does have some Wi-Fi hotspots that we want to reserve for the neediest of kids. So we will outline all of that information for the campuses, kind of a decision tree, because our goal is to steer them toward one of the service providers first, And if all of that then fails, then the safety net is hotspots until we're out, and that's whatever point, then we would have to consider buying more if there are supplies for that.
How much do they cost?
I have the information, I don't have it on the top of my head. The hotspot itself is, I'm well under $75, but I don't really want to state what it is, but I can tell you momentarily, shortly, if you'd like, before we leave here.
And is there a means, do we have a logistical plan of how we'll determine in week 1, I guess next week, how many children don't have access to the internet? Is that the classroom teachers are going to census or take roll of their class, who they're able to reach online, and then we'll know these 5 students we didn't reach, or what's the plan for that?
But as was mentioned before, that the campuses, the campus principals and the teachers are going to have to funnel that information upwards and kind of help us collect it. It's the million-dollar question that we've always had that we don't actually know the answer to. We feel like a lot of families don't have access. However, I think that might be catastrophizing just a little bit. We may find that quite a few families do, but I don't think that we'll know this answer until we see who we can reach.
We can, yeah.
We're going to have to just play it by ear.
But but more specifically, do we have a plan for how the information from the frontline teacher filters to the campus and to you?
As far as how to report the kids that have not
Yeah,
reported.
how we're gonna get a specific, this is the kid, this is where they live, this is how many we have, it's 200, it's 2,000, whatever it is.
So in this plan, the principals have recommended that we create a survey and we push it out to families. Do you have access to an internet? Do you have access to technology? When we get that information, then we can develop that plan and the access points that we can filter out to the community and the students as well. Because right now, how many families have we given access to the hotspots? I thought it was like 100.
It's just slightly less than 100 that we've provided access for them.
And so now it's just a matter of seeing what other families need support that may not have come forward earlier in the year.
Precisely.
So we did a survey once before, and that's where we gained the information that there were 200, and I asked about this on the phone the other day, so
Right.
there were 200 to 300 who said they did not have access, and then there were 2,000 that didn't respond, right?
I have the detailed numbers. I wish I'd grab my phone. High-level numbers, round numbers. Secondary was in the neighborhood of 250. I think it was 240. In elementary grades, primary grades, it was similar, somewhere around 250. However, we've been one-to-one this entire year, and all of the families that have expressed a need have received a hotspot. And so what we're finding is less than half of the kids that said, I don't have access at home, have not expressed a need yet. So it may be that they, in fact, do have access, but again, I don't think that we'll know the answer to that until we get further into this process.
Ms. Villapando and then Ms. Halsey. Ms. Villapando.
My question was gonna be on the Facebook number, 32,000.
Yeah, it's been in line, yeah,
Of that, do you know which ones were our
all of them.
population?
For all
You
of
can
them.
break down the demographics.
Something for all of them.
You know,
Is that a
that
yes?
one reads up
Yeah.
to about 58,000 that we've reached. And so about 52,000 of that was in the San Marcos map. But I can't break it down to like, this is Redwood, this is Rachel Vista. I can just break down like the San Marcos demographic.
I'm just curious if it's our students or other students, and if it's other students, hey. I don't know that they're gonna get the materials, but they're at least aware of what the SMCISD is doing.
And I think once our teachers come back virtually, I think they'll help us identify the students in need as well. They have better communication relationships with their families, and they would be able to report to us, hey, we have 2 students that really need internet access. Rather than us as a district trying to figure out a total number, I think those numbers will start trickling in as teachers start identifying the family's needs.
I agree with that.
All right, Ms. Halsey and then Mr. Redondo, and then Ms. Cantu.
My comment was going to be that I think that we know from local research done by Texas State faculty that even our families that don't necessarily have devices or smartphones often have text capabilities. So I think that if we can just streamline that message early and get it out via text next week to, if you do not have access and you can't go to the public library because it's closed, please contact your child's teacher, because at this point in the school year, if a family has a contact, it's the child's teacher. So I think if we can just be really clear on that. Thank you.
Mr. Adamo?
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Hubenek, again, just to reiterate, I think Mr. McLaughlin's point is, one, I guess my initial concern is as our ISD essentially goes to all online operations and curriculum and teaching, one is that we have the infrastructure in place to sustain that type of learning model. I know at Texas State, they're having conversations about if we have, 34,000 students all on our network doing all of the things, what does that look like, and do we have the capacity to facilitate that? So I'm sure that your department is figuring those things out, but since we are constitutionally obligated to provide an education to our students who come to our schools, and we are now going online, as we give, authority to Michael, the superintendent of schools, to do things in regards to budget and purchasing, I just want to make sure that, we are ready to purchase those hotspots as needed, and that obviously individually cost isn't of concern right now. I think my concern is that we guarantee that every ISD student has access to not just internet services or Wi-Fi, but reliable Wi-Fi services for the foreseeable future. I understand that some families have, higher bandwidth, lower bandwidth, different providers, things of that nature. They have their own devices on there, but what we're saying is your child's education is contingent on you having a device and you having Wi-Fi. So I think it is the ISD's responsibility, regardless of if a family says we have it or not, we already have it, we're taken care of, is ensuring that even families who have denoted, oh yeah, no, we have Wi-Fi, okay. Well, is it reliable? Are teachers going to be able to stream regularly? I mean, all of these things that we haven't done before, just because a family has said that they've been able to do it, arbitrarily as families do lessons. Currently, obviously, this is a very different model from what we've been doing. We're moving all education online, all of it to streaming, and I don't know if all of our families have the capabilities to provide such a robust programming service, and all the science behind that.
Sure.
So again, when we talk about families saying historically they've had access to Wi-Fi services, yes, they have, but that was in a very different model of how we were doing online education
Absolutely,
and teaching.
I understand that. I'm going to try to step through. There was a lot of questions. The first one, though, about our infrastructure, and we've been talking about this, and actually, as more people work remotely, almost all of these resources are internet-based. Even the authentication, whenever you put in your username and password, can authenticate against Google. There are some of the programs that we have that authenticate against our servers inside the network. But the load on our resources will likely be very smaller because everything is distributed and they're going to internet-based resources. So we're going to continue to talk about that and continue to watch it. But right now, that's not our primary concern. I wanted to finish up with some unanswered questions. I mentioned the 250 and 250 that said that we don't have access. The number that didn't respond way back at registration was just slightly north of 1,700. The program with the hotspots, now again, we do have some in stock. If we did need to buy more, someone's calling me. Actually, individually, that would be $84, but in a pack of 100, there would be $7,200, so it would be $72 per hotspot if we did a pack of 100. And they have increased the data cap on every hotspot. Previously, it was 2 gigs per month. They've increased it to 20, so that's a pretty significant amount of bandwidth. Each one of the hotspots, I believe, supports 5 devices, so if there are multiple siblings in the house, you would only need one. And they have also reduced, we're part of a program called Empower Ed with T-Mobile, where they make a significant contribution because of what it is they call it the homework gap. And they've dropped it from 24-month term to a 12-month term at $10 a month. So I I think the challenge here is knowing how quickly, or how quickly we can learn how many people need access. Because as you can imagine, the resources will probably be depleted pretty quickly with all of the hotspot providers. And that's why our plan, hopefully, is to, as people express the need, we will steer them first toward CenturyLink, toward Grande, toward Spectrum, and those providers that can provide them access in the home. And if that then fails, then again, the safety net would be the hotspots by the district.
And follow up on Mr. Arredondo's question and your answer. I'm concerned that all of that takes too long. And this is a urgent matter that by next Thursday, all of our kids, or as close as reasonably possible to next Thursday, all our kids have internet access at home and something that they can work on, right? And so funneling them to providers, waiting for that to work out, trying to determine, that all just sounds like weeks instead of days, and I'd like to compress that schedule some. And additionally, have you had conversations with Century, Grande, or Spectrum about waiving connection fees and providing 60 days of service, or providing any additional discounts or programs for our teachers who are now having to have increased high-speed access in their homes, and in order to facilitate the learning remotely? Have we had any of those sort of high-level, what can you do for us discussions?
Yes, so I've made contact with all those providers earlier this week, and some of them have expressed that they will get me more details by tomorrow. So I'm logging all this information so that we have it. The programs, what we've spoken of so far has been for the students. We've not had the discussion of whether teachers need to change their plans for access. That one hasn't happened, but we can add that to the discussion. So currently, I don't have a great amount of detail on what these special offers will be, other than, for example, Spectrum, Time Warner. They do have a program where, because of the pandemic, the first 2 months will be free. So it's 60 days of free service. There will be no installation fees. However, there is an expectation of a 12-month term. So I've asked for clarification on what that monthly rate will be, because what's posted on the internet is somewhere in the neighborhood of $44 per month, which is a little bit high. A lot of providers for economically disadvantaged students will have a program that's $10 a month, but I don't know if they're going to offer that. So right now, what the programs look like so far is, yes, we can get you going. 2 months are free.
But you
However,
have to, yeah, there was a
the
catch.
expectation to pay for that service for the other 10 months is still there.
Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin, and I think you really verbalized, I guess, the concern that I didn't know how to put into words. So at this point in time, Greg, I'm ready to direct the superintendent and his staff, if there's support from the board, that our technology department just take a leading role in this and ensure that all of our ISD families and students have some type of Wi-Fi hotspot capability, again, because we are essentially saying you're going to do this and you're going to have to do this to receive an education for the foreseeable future in the ISD. So I would rather, yes, I know you're working with providers, and then families have to schedule when it's connected at their house and then possibly lock themselves into a 12-month contract. Again, that is based on a decision by the school district for the safety of our ISD families and teachers to change the way in which we're teaching. So, as more information is available to you tomorrow and next week, the Board of Trustees is agendized and posted to meet today. So the only thing that I can guarantee is that we're here today to take action on some of these things. So I want to make sure that we give you the latitude and the ability to do that. So I don't know what that cost is, and I know that you don't have it. But again, as we say, every student, to get an education, you're going to need a device and you're going to need internet. We're mandating that. I think we should be able to provide that on the ISD end. So I don't know what that plan would look like to ensure that all of our students have a device. I, again, understand that we all have a cell phone, but I don't want a third grader's education or a junior in high school or whatever that looks like to be contingent on what kind of device they self-identify as their device to receive an education for the next several weeks, possibly months. So again, I'm ready to do that. I don't know where my colleagues are on that issue, but when we talk about teachers having to tele-teach from home and students having to learn via streaming, it's a no-brainer to me that we ensure and provide those services on our end because we're mandating it as a district.
Understood. Thank you.
Ms. Villapando, and then Kintu, and then Halsey, go ahead.
Okay. My question is this. I've heard from people who live out in the outskirts, and I'm not sure that they're in our district, but their internet is very intermittent. And so do the hotspots work out there even if there's no service provider that has good service?
So what we...
No, I'm sorry.
Right, no, I mean, we're dependent on the footprints of our service providers. T-Mobile has a pretty robust footprint, and we've mapped it before. We've looked at it on a map from I guess a textbook scenario, and most areas have some sort of coverage. But for that very reason is why I've also reached out to AT&T. We've done business with AT&T before. So if there's a family that cannot receive service, hopefully we can provide, a hotspot from a different provider that may in fact have better service in that area. So the relationship with T-Mobile is very strong. You guys may remember, last year when we partnered with them. But anyways, we have the ability of going with AT&T or Verizon. Now, they just have not come forward with as much information as T-Mobile has so far.
I have a follow-up. I asked AT&T because in Austin, people get AT&T. And so I wanted to have a good internet service, and so I talked to them here. They were here at one of our conferences that we have here at the schools. Anyway, and so they told me that they didn't have the customer base here, so they weren't going to come here. Maybe that's changed in a few years, but
I didn't hear that last. They have a what?
they didn't have the customer base that they wanted to provide service. AT&T. I wanted that internet service, but did they come in after all? That's been a few years.
That's surprising. I'm not sure that I fully understand the question, to be perfectly honest. I know that AT&T has a very strong footprint in San Marcos. Whenever the cell phones that we provide to our maintenance workers and our bus drivers is AT&T service. So we can certainly poll them. Now those phones, unfortunately, are voice only, not data. But AT&T has shown to have a very strong footprint
So
in San Marcos.
you're talking about AT&T Mobile, and Mr. Rapondo's talking about
Talking
AT&T
about
Digital, right?
AT&T,
Oh.
which is actually
Fiber, data, right? So different
Oh, yeah,
different
well, okay.
footprints.
I'm
but-
talking about our-
Right. Ms. Halsey and then Ms. Kintu?
Yes, thank you. So right now, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of iPads, Google Books, Chromebooks, et cetera, sitting in our schools across the district because nobody's using them and won't be using them for the next at least 8 weeks. Can we start checking those out to families who need them on Monday?
Well, that's what we'll use the principals to lead and their librarians and stuff. Like, they will figure that out because they'll just be sitting there.
Okay,
But
so we can
yes.
get those out into
Yes.
homes ASAP.
Yes.
Terrific, great. And so then, in terms of the connectivity issue, can we try to address this in a less piecemeal way by going to the Core 4 partnership and figuring out how we can together fund Wi-Fi access throughout the city? Because cities across the country provide Wi-Fi access, and we certainly have the capabilities of that, and all 4 of those groups are going to need that connectivity. So can we not just try to do that quickly and then worry about places where we can't reach, getting them that?
So I want to make sure
Wi-Fi?
I'm understanding, your first point, as far as the devices that we have currently in our schools, yes, we're going to rely on the campuses, but we front-loaded that discussion with a report that shows every campus, according to inventory, what they have on their campus. And we've called out all of the older devices that we prefer to not be used, only modern generation iPads and Chromebooks. So they have those numbers, and they have access to the inventory system as well to run those numbers. But we do have them, and so yes, you're correct. There's a good, strong amount of resources on the campuses currently. As far as the citywide Wi-Fi, San Marcos was investigating, and we communicate with the city of San Marcos quite frequently, pretty tight relationship. I talk to Mike Sturm all the time. He's the city IT director. They had a large push to do citywide Wi-Fi several years ago, and that didn't happen. There were a lot of complications. It's actually an extremely complicated and expensive project. A lot of it depends on an array of towers around the city, and the last that I spoke to him, I mean, it was still an issue of where will we put these towers and have these towers built. So I think it's a great idea. I don't think that it's realistic, especially when we're talking about trying to turn something around quickly. The hotspots are definitely the easiest thing. Send a hockey puck home with the kid, and it's solved.
That makes
And
sense,
we
but I
have the
wish, I would
providers.
like us to have that conversation, because that seems to me like an area where we need to be speaking together, and if we go to the state, we're gonna need, there are gonna be infrastructural issues that arise out of this, and so let's get on that list quickly.
Ms. Cantu?
My question's for Monica again. I'm thinking about all the career students that are taking like cosmetology and have to have so many hours built into their program in order to get their certification. How are we going to provide for them?
So we're waiting on guidance from TEA regarding CTE because of the practicum hours needed prior to students taking their certification. So Mr. Doyle has a call, I think it's also tomorrow as well, and they're going to talk through that. So as the information comes to us and we see what the guidance is, I can send that to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, hold on. Mr. Arredondo?
Yes, okay, so I guess just to get this moving along, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we authorize the superintendent or his designee to purchase as necessary Wi-Fi hotspots for all ISD students and households.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Wait, you want 8,000?
I said as necessary.
Oh, like, who doesn't have it?
Yeah, but I mean, theoretically,
Up to
the,
8,000.
yeah, I'm assuming we have multi-child households, so I don't think it'd be 8,000, but,
We don't
yeah.
need one.
Technically, yes, it would authorize the administration to purchase up to however many households there are in the ISD with currently enrolled children.
Okay. I would be, you got a motion in a second, we'll vote in a second, but as to discussion, I think ordering 500 today would be maybe more tangible and quicker than waiting for an evaluation of how many households we don't have, getting that back maybe March 30th, optimistically, then placing an order that will take 30 days maybe to receive, or potentially they could run out of inventory since every district everywhere is having the same problem. So can we add that would be an initial purchase of 500 today, which is about 40 grand. It's really not that much.
I guess, as stated, it would allow the administration to purchase up to, so they could purchase under the
If they
wording
thought
of the
that was so.
motion,
Okay.
they could purchase the 500 now, and, if inventory is low, obviously, I would want them to purchase as many as possible today. So, yeah, I mean, based on, I guess, yeah, they would order 100 or 500 or all 5,000 a day.
Well, I'll ask, so Mr. Cardona, with that motion does that give you enough discretion and understanding of how to proceed?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
for that-
any
for
further
that
discussion
issue.
on the request? The motion, sorry. All right, we got a motion and a second to instruct, I don't want to get it wrong.
Yeah, motion to authorize the administration motion to authorize the superintendent or his designee to purchase Wi-Fi hotspots for all ISD students and households.
With the budget amendment to come later.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Ms. Hanson, do you have a vote? Yep, we got a vote from Ms. Hanson, yes. All right, so that carries. So I think the earlier, as I indicated, the earlier we can make an initial order. I mean, we know 500 is a safe number. From everything he gleaned, 1,700 didn't respond and 270 didn't have service. So we've got a hemisphere of about 2,000 kids who potentially don't have service because 6,000 confirmed they did. You've got 100 now. You think that number is a little inflated, but we know 500. I mean, it's 50 grand, and times like this, we got to make sure. So I would hope at least that much. If you feel more, go for it.
Before we leave this, I have a question
All
about
right.
scholarships. Normally, April is a time of doing scholarships, students submitting applications, and what are we doing to prepare for that?
I mean, I don't think we have an absolute answer for y'all on like any of this stuff, because
'Cause
we've
it's
never,
too specific?
we've never experienced it. So, I mean, I would hope that the scholarship people will work with us on extending the necessary deadlines, but I do know that when the counselors, I mean, they can do the work remotely and get with the kids to submit. I hope the colleges and universities push back all their things, but we'll have Dr. Reese and Ms. Mustafa Chapman make sure that they check up on that stuff.
Ms. Castilla had a question.
I really didn't have a question, Mr. McLaughlin. In regards to the motion that we just took, I was just going to add, in regards to the hotspots that we were talking about, that I really did not prefer for any parent to go into get a free for 2 months and then get stuck with 10 months later, that I'm much rather that we undertake that cost, which we just did, and that's what I was going to make reference to.
Okay. Ms. Halsey.
So I have a question on another topic, if we're ready to.
Yes.
Could y'all talk, please, about how we are going to be providing mental health services to our community?
They don't
I
have
mean,
details.
I don't know that we have figured that out. Like, we're all undergoing mental health right now, so I think, seriously,
No, I mean, I think that we're obviously going to see a huge spike in need, and we know that we have kids that are not necessarily going to be in the safest spaces when they're not in school.
Correct.
And so I would like to see us develop a plan for that, and if that plan would involve hiring additional social workers immediately to help develop those plans and those outreach programs, I would be very much in favor of doing that.
Mr. Superintendent, may I say something? And Ms. Chapman Mustafa is also working on creating like virtual circles and phone calls for families and community members, and she's also working on establishing a listserv so parents can have resources as well. And she says that she's designated 4 hours a day where counselors will be able to help support the students and the families. We don't know what that's going to look like, if it's face-to-face, making sure that we have the distance, but we are working on that, and it's in the remote learning plan as well.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Arredondo?
This goes back to an earlier topic, Mr. Barton. I understand that, Mr. Wesson has pursued other employment opportunities outside of the ISD, and we had posted that position, and I just wanted an update on, where we were in hiring for that employee, and then I have
I
supplemental
believe the job
questions to
closed last week. We have reviewed applications. I'm preparing to submit them to the superintendent for his review. We can't hire that position until it comes to the board. That's a director position, so it will come to you for approval. So we're targeting the April board meeting. If you tell me you intend to take action earlier, we obviously need to do some interviews and make a recommendation to the superintendent. But that kind of work is progressing. It continues.
As an individual trustee, and typically, historically, when recommendations by the administration have been brought forward through a hiring process and through a committee, very rarely, if ever, I don't think this board has voted against the recommendation of the superintendent of schools and the hiring committee individually, because of the unique situation that we find ourselves in, expediting the hiring of that employee, then coordinating with our contractors across the ISD. Again, given our circumstances in regards to our bond election and ongoing construction, we find ourselves in a unique situation where children are no longer at our schools for the foreseeable future. So I would be under the assumption that whoever would be hired in that position would have enough expertise to be working with the contractors that we have in place to expedite as many construction projects as realistically possible, given the parameters that they will have in regards to employees being on the site and continuing work, but if necessary, I'm ready to take action today, if there's support from my colleagues, to defer the authority to the superintendent to hire that position without the Board of Trustees having to meet to act on that. And I say that because we are, I guess, operating under the assumption that we will even physically be able to meet in some way, shape, or form on the April 6th meeting. We see in a lot of other communities across the nation, across the globe, that they are not afforded that luxury to gather in a similar space under similar circumstances. So if necessary, I'm ready to make a motion to authorize the superintendent and his designee to move forward with the hiring of that position without board approval.
I'm sure the flexibility would be appreciated, although the one thing I would say is not every candidate is the same. Not every candidate brings the same skill set, and we are blessed to have a person currently who is able to handle facility and maintenance for the district and also construction management over the bond. If that is not what this next candidate brings to us, we would have to look at construction administration, of bringing in a company or a construction manager that we paid out of the bond. And that's something we've been discussing as a cabinet group. And again, that would be an additional position that we would create to be paid for out of the bond. And it does seem small in these moments, but that is something, work and conversations that have been continuing, but it may not be in the same person. There may be two positions. And so I just want to make sure I'm clear with that, and I don't allow a misconception to occur or continue. It may be a facilities director and a construction manager, two separate people moving forward.
So the current organizational structure of that department, it was my understanding that we do have like an associate director of maintenance and facilities. Is that correct? That we have, under what Jay was, there was two other secondary employees over certain aspects of the ISD.
The associate director, and it was mainly over climate control and energy management, has transitioned to a position in a nearby district over safety, and we will be filling that position at the end of the year, most likely.
Is there a way with the current budget outlaid in Mr. Wesson's position and that prior employee that you could somehow manage to hire those positions if granted the authority to serve both of those roles, someone to oversee facilities and construction management? Because right now you have two open positions. You have
The construction management would be paid out of the bond. So we have sufficient space in our bond to pay that position. It wouldn't be locally funded. I'm not sure I'm
No, that makes sense. So, I mean,
it would be a board decision. We would bring it to you and say, this is the money that's available to the board, and you would have the opportunity to say, yes, we will hire someone at this salary for 2 years. And you would know what that cost is going to be.
So the position that you'd be hiring to replace Mr. Wesson would just be over facilities management then?
That's the most narrow view. If we have a candidate that is selected that has that capability, we'll obviously run with that. But I don't want to give you the idea that that's a guarantee. We have a wide variety of candidates.
Okay. Let me modify my motion.
It seems like among the many topics that we bunched together in Roman 4, we're also including food service and food distribution during the break. Do we have any, can we get an overview for the purposes of who might be listening, of what the present plan is?
Can we take a quick break and then, or after this?
Maybe after it goes, then we'll ask questions.
Still morning, right?
It is. My clock's wrong, though. It's not falling backwards.
Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Boone.
Director of Child Nutrition. I just had some quick notes here. It's a very fluid, minute-to-minute changes with what USDA is allowing TDA to do with the program. We had a webcast yesterday with the head lady from TDA, and there were more questions than answers. And some of the stuff that I originally did, reached out to Region 13 with certain questions, have changed as of yesterday at 3 o'clock. One of those is I asked Region 13, can we put breakfast and lunch together and serve it in one time period? ESC 13 said no. USDA has overridden that, and now we can do that. So that's a thing that we need to look at is, and I think it'd be better for the community where, you know, and I put different times, 9 to 1, 10 to 1, whatever, and have 2 separate bags, but a breakfast for the next morning and a lunch for today, and they could come every day and get that. Some of the qualifications, and Doug and I have worked a plan where there will be no contact between our employees and whoever's in. It's in the car, the kids have to be in the car to receive the meal. We'll use Travis as an example. We're going to put one cart at the very beginning, and it's going to be 6 feet away from basically the bus lane. People will pull up, they'll roll their window down, we'll go, how many kids you got in the car? They'll yell back at us, 4. Well, this is how TDA, USDA wants us to do it. We visually see that there's 4 kids in the car. We put 4 X's through our count sheet. We yell down, they got 4. They pull down another 20 yards to another table, and our people have already gone out there and put, now be 2 bags of breakfast, you know, 4 of each. They pull up where they don't even have, we don't want people out of the car. We want them to grab it and then head on down the road. That's our game plan. It's very fluid. Things change. I think we have a good plan. I mean, I was ahead of this. We have over 10,000 Uncrustables in the district. I ordered them when this first started. We always keep some for emergencies. We usually keep 20 cases of Uncrustables, 72 to a case in the warehouse, just in case, no power, no gas, no water, or we have stuff to feed the kids. And we keep water. We keep generally 20 cases of water. We have tons of food. I have a big order coming in Monday morning. I've talked to everybody, milk, everybody. I don't see any food of being an issue. I have no idea how many people are going to show. I said it could be 10, it could be 500. We will find that out Monday morning. But we're going to prep for, I already talked to the managers. I only have the managers coming in. Try to keep contact between employees and the public to a minimum. That's one of my main concerns is bringing regular employees in. 70% of our employees are moms, and they're taking care of their kids right now. Of those, we have 94 employees. I can think of 20 who have pre-existing health conditions. Another 15 to 20 that are over 55 years old. We've got 3 pregnant right now. So the game plan is to keep the regular child nutrition employees not in this. That's my opinion. What else here? The food banks at Rattler Stadium right now. They come every first Tuesday and third Thursday of every month. They bring a semi out there. And they're out there right now. I texted Eleanor. She's not real good about texting me back. I said, is it crazy out there? And she hadn't texted me back, so it may be crazy out there. I've talked to her about teaming with us anytime they want to come to any school and give out whatever they have. It's fine. I've talked to the backpack, school fuel. Thank you. And they're going to get with the principals Monday morning, because I guess they kind of have it where, only certain kids get it, so there's going to be discussion of who actually, so that's kind of, they're doing that through the schools. What else? That's kind of all the notes I had. I kind of feel like I'm a general in a war zone. But I think that's all. And Brother Michael at Redwood Baptist Church, as soon as we get done, Doug and I are going to call him because we've kind of explained the situation, how it should be done out there, but I worry about them, So he had texted me, hey, what's going on? So I said, I'm in a board meeting. I'm with Doug. I'll call you later and we'll get the game plan. Doug's going to be out with himself and Ryan and David, and I'm going to be here. Melba's going to be at Travis, and we're going to set it up, and then Doug's going to have his guys kind of doing the logistics of, traffic control. Because I heard San Antonio ISD did it first time, I think yesterday. And this is through, and I hate Facebook. I don't have Facebook, I don't have Twitter, or any of that stuff. That's the root of all evil is social media, in my opinion.
I agree.
But somebody told me, a manager told me that they saw on Facebook that San Antonio ISD were overran, and they ran out of food. I don't know. I know the girl there, Jenny. She's a great director. We're all crazy. I didn't want to call her, but we'll be ready. We'll have plenty of food. And we get orders Monday and Wednesday. And, Labatt had all the food for school to be taking place every day. So they got plenty of food. And, we did stock up some stuff, and I did a big order to come in Monday with 80 cases of apples and, which 138 took a case, and I've got 50 cases of oranges coming in on Tuesday in commodity. We have 50 cases of raisins, and then we have chips out, and we're going to rob the vending machines to not literally rob, borrow them to, and milk's not an issue. The milk that we had in before spring break, they all have the 30th date on it. So I saw the milkman Marty out, and we've got a game plan where my two drivers are going to the schools Monday morning at 6 a.m., getting to have the most milk, grabbing all the milk and whatever apples and chips and whatever they have, and they're going to take them to here and out over to Travis. So, I think I have as good a plan as any, but Murphy's Law, it'll be something, and, but I think we're fully prepared. I mean, we have 3 sites. We're hitting Redwood. It's the most poverty needing. And high school is the biggest prep area that we can have because we'll produce the meals here for Redwood, closest to Redwood, and freezer space, cooler space, ovens. We're trying not to we'll probably do Uncrustables on Monday, Bosco sticks. Maribel and I are going to sit down because it still has to meet all the guidelines. Bosco sticks. The kids love these Uncrustables. And we have a bunch of them, and we got a bunch of pounds of commodity that we need to use too. So, and also we're going to do burritos and talking about doing Hot Pockets. But we got to make the nutritionals meet together. But it's very fluid what happens today. There was definitely more questions than answers, and that's how it's always been in TDA. Is the old saying is, if you call TDA and ask them a question and they give you an answer you don't like, you know what you do? Call them back in 5 minutes because you'll get a different answer. And one of their favorite sayings is, we'll get back with you. So another thing I'm going to do, Adrian and my staff, she is very good at reading all this policy stuff and telling me in simple English what it means. So that's going to be part of her job starting Monday morning, is to decipher the changes that are coming. Boom, 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 boom. So I did the application the way ESC said to do the application, And then I got an email, like 4:45 yesterday that said, you didn't put CORV-19 before the site name. So I had to go in and delete all the sites, and I did that before I came over here. Delete all the sites, go back in, put all the information in, but just put that little thing in front. That's the world I live in. So I think we're totally prepared. Mr. Cardona said that I didn't want him to come. I said, too many cooks spoil the broth. No, it's going to make my employees nervous the first day, and then we don't want more than 10 people congregate, you know. So I think that's where we stand, and any questions? Everyone?
Ms. Castillo?
Mr. Boone, I applaud you for, I appreciate you knowing everything about your employees, and I think that's really important, that when you're citing the people that have underlying conditions and so forth. So that leads me to the question that is it something that maybe because of the fact that you're looking out for the employees that can and cannot come in, is it something that maybe you might need additional help with, that would it enhance the distribution process if you did have additional hands that maybe are not the current employees for the purposes that you mentioned? Is that something that maybe you might need to make sure that you have enough hands to make the distributions that you need to make?
You know, until Monday, we won't know, you know. I think we're going to be fine. Okay. I mean, the managers are very capable. We split them between Travis and high school, one more here at high school because we're going to be doing good night. We have 2 drivers, one at each school. Melba and I are splitting it. And then the office staff will let Adrian stay in the office and kind of handle anything else. And then Maribel will be at one school. Maribel's out here and Lori is over it. So I feel we're going to be fine unless, you know, unless we get slammed like Facebook said San Antonio, but I think we'll still be fine because it doesn't, and if we do the one, and that's a decision I kind of need to know in discussion, if we go to this 9 to 1 and do both of them starting Monday and have to put out, you know, all calls and that, or do we wait and see how this first week goes? And then if, I don't know, that's something that I'm going to leave to the higher people.
Yeah, we did promote the schedule that we created last week, and that's breakfast 8 to 9:30 at Travis Elementary and San Marcos High School, and then lunch 11:30 to 1 p.m. at Travis, San Marcos High School, and Redwood Baptist Church. And we did announce on the flyer that it's a grab-and-go method. So you come, grab it, and you go. It's not a dine-in kind of thing. And so we did promote that. We texted parents, emailed parents, Facebook, Twitter, all. I believe the Daily Record also promoted that as well. So we did promote that already, but if we do change anything, I can definitely start that process again.
Are there enough distribution centers that you feel that we don't need to add anymore? You know, you mentioned the high school, and I think one in Redwood area, and then there's another one, you mentioned 3?
Yeah, we got the high school, Travis, and Redwood.
And Redwood.
You know, I think and I kind of looked at other districts that I could see, and what was it? Austin was doing 14% of their schools. We're doing 23% of our, and I looked in San Antonio, and a lot of schools are doing 1 site, you know, 2 sites for bigger districts. I mean, we're, you know, and it's a play, you know, if it looks like there's an overwhelming demand, I can go in there, I just put the applications in. I can go in right now and change it and add something, because I will have to change the times if we go down to 1 period. And another thing good about one time period, then Redwood would get both breakfast and lunch. So, but you know, I'm kind of dependent on them. Brother Michael and Zulema, she's from Centro. Brother Michael's from Redwood. You know, we're gung-ho about staffing it. I worry about their safety. They're not spring chickens like me, you know. So, I worry about them, and I think he's starting to worry because he's calling me, hey, Mike. So I said, hey, we'll call you after. But with labor-wise, if we get slammed, Andrew can wear gloves.
I'm ready.
We got maintenance, we got custodial. I mean, yeah, we probably won't get a lot of production, but we'll do the best that we can.
I'll do it with a smile.
Be on social media
He
and
can
you'll be
open
doing all the
bags.
work.
I'll be-
pictures.
It's not, we're like thawing out the Uncrustables. We got a bag, we're putting the Uncrustable in, we're putting the chips in, we're putting the baby carrots in, we're putting an apple in, and then we're gonna have a big old coolers with, orange juice and milk, and they'll go in when they pull up, because if you throw them in too early, the bag
Who is
breaks.
doing that assembly, though? Because you said you're not relying on child nutrition staff, so who's assembling the bags?
All my cafeteria managers.
That's
The
what,
cafeteria managers, okay.
Yes, I don't,
I have more questions.
prefer not to
well, I
bring
got one,
in
and then I'll,
regular, I feel bad enough, asking them to do this.
so as far as funding, I'm gonna finish my question. As far as funding, you have enough funds for the food
Well,
items that you need? or-
We can claim these meals. They're reimbursable meals, but we're going down from doing, everybody's getting paid. We're going from doing, 6,500 lunches to maybe, 500 or something, so, and so funding is, it's gonna be, we lost money last year for the first time we ever lost money.
But this is something that, this is a concern to me, but as far as funds, the funds are there. If
Yeah.
not, we can appropriate those funds for food purposes.
Yeah, and we still have money in the, child nutrition fund.
Ms. Halsey?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate all the work you do every day, and especially now, and I think the leadership role that you're going to be taking during this crisis it cannot be understated, so thank you. I also want to reiterate that I want to make sure that staff who's immunocompromised, who, have small kids at home, who cannot come in and should not come in, stay home and also be paid in full 100% with benefits. And I also would like you to strongly consider starting to hire immediately, at least posting for hiring, because we know that there were hundreds of restaurant workers laid off in this community yesterday. And so we have people who are experienced in food service. The staff, even, having the cafeteria managers come in to pack bags, it's very likely those cafeteria managers are going to fall ill in the next few weeks. So we need to be also planning for staffing on a rolling, continuous basis. The other point, a couple other things I wanted to say. One, I would like us to strongly consider opening up Mendez as a distribution site. I appreciate your flexibility and the way that you're responding, as things rapidly change, and going to delivering breakfast and lunch at the same time, I think is great. I also would like us to see if we could deliver meals via the regular bus routes, because as somebody who not too long ago had 3 children under the age of 5, getting all 3 of my kids into the car and to any facility would be very, very difficult, especially if any person in my household was ill and I had to also take care of that person, right? And so I would like us to look at how much, if we can do delivery. And the other thing I hope that we'll do, I understand the USDA guidelines say that you have to count the number of kids in the car, but I hope that we will be seeing a child and putting as many number of bags into that car as requested, and that we are not going to enforce that strictly. So, thank you.
Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you. So, Mr. Boone, I'm going to get back to our district's meal program in 1 second. I'm going to make a motion that we authorize the superintendent or his designee the authority to hire temporary employees to fulfill critical roles in child nutrition, custodial services, maintenance, and transportation due to employees being placed on paid leave.
I'll second.
So it's my understanding, now that we have a motion and a second, that any employee that meets a certain category of where they're at additional risk, that the ISD is directing them to be on paid leave. And just based on these conversations and based on Mr. Boone's tone and his concern that maybe by some action of the board today that those employees would be called in if we expanded child nutrition, I'm now concerned that that has not been adequately communicated or enacted by the Board of Trustees. So although out of order, my expectation is that we as a board vote to place every ISD employee who is at risk during this health crisis on paid leave effective immediately. We do not give them the option to come in as much as they might want to help provide food for our kids or provide transportation or whatever that is. It's now I have to have some board authorized direction to move forward with that. I want to make sure that every ISD employee who falls into that immunocompromised category is placed on paid leave effective immediately. So that is why my first motion is to hire to fulfill those roles.
Okay.
So I can read it again since I went a lot of places.
And I recall there's a motion and a second to provide the superintendent authority to hire temporary workers if he determines that to be necessary.
In child nutrition, custodial services, maintenance, and transportation due to employees being placed on paid leave.
Mr. Cardone, do you feel you presently have that authority? If you felt the need?
Well, I mean, as long as I'm not adding FTEs, I do have the authority to hire presently. And I think with our budget, the way we've looked at it, we have flexibility right now, yes.
I just,
Don't really know if we need a
okay, are there any other questions or comments on the motion?
Just one clarification on this, because I'm not against hiring, and this was my question in regards to whether you needed additional staff, given what you described regarding your employees. I mean, every employer in this town has employees, all of us. I mean, I'm an employee at the university, but I'm not assuming that they're gonna hire somebody else, continue to pay me and hire somebody else at the same time. I'm just trying to clarify that, because I think that I think the district is doing what it can. I very much appreciate everything that's going on. This is an unknown to us. This is not something that we have a booklet, I have a binder that says, this is what happens, go down this. We're learning as we're going by, and I think we need to understand that we're all going to have some stumbles, and if we stumble, well, we pick up and we learn from it. It's a bad situation that we don't want to be learning as we go by, but there's no other rules there. All we can do is do what we can best. So for me, this issue regarding, so we hire new employees for the ones that are on paid leave. I would just want to hire employees that if a department needs it, based on whatever, if they're short on something that's going on, then I might rather go in that direction, but not just because some employees are on paid leave, I'm assuming they're gonna get paid. I think we're gonna address that, are we not?
Yes.
On the last one? On the next one, I'm assuming we're gonna address that issue. So I would just prefer that we just allow the superintendent the flexibility that he needs. If he needs to hire more people in the food service department, then do so. I think that everything is going to be, like you said, it is fluid, it changes from day to day. Whether something is going in one department and another one it's not, we're just gonna have to depend and make sure, and reassure you all that we're here to help in any way that we can. If it means money, means more staff, fine, go ahead and do it. But as far as because they're on paid leave, I much rather just go with a motion that, hire the necessary staff that is needed for the length of time that it's needed.
And if I could say something, I do have regular employees, like here Alice told me, like two ladies, young girls that are healthy, and they want to come and work. So, I mean, but there's other ones that I don't want anywhere near here. I mean, they're diabetic and they've had heart issues, and they're 60 years old, and did I describe myself or what?
I understand that, and I think that What we are seeing, though, is the way that this pandemic is working out in other places is that there is a rolling, continuous need. As soon as our curve hits, there are going to be people who cannot come to work, and there are going to be many people who should not come to work. And so starting now to hire temporary workers to fulfill those critical areas so that we can continue serving the community and serving the kids in this community as long as we possibly can, I think it's incumbent on us to do that right now and not wait.
I have full confidence that between the superintendent and Mr. Boone,
I do too.
they're going to take care of business. And you've done all your research, you've checked the surrounding districts, how
Right.
many food sites we need. I know y'all are gonna get our kids fed.
Yeah, I do too. I totally agree with that.
Mr. O'Donnell?
So, Mr. Boone, you've been in this field of work for quite some time, probably as long as I've been on this planet. So I'm going to defer to your expertise in regards in how it is best to operate the food service program. However, I was elected by a community that has certain expectations of what to receive and what they need in the times of need. And it's just a fact that not a majority of our ISD families have the means to get in a car, to load up their children, to travel across this community on either side of the highway and pick up food. And taking into consideration not only staff safety and the safety of our families and the fact that many ISD families will lose their means of employment and income over the next several weeks as businesses shut down across the region, to say that our families have to have a working car, to have the means to put gas in that car, to load their kids up, to do all of the things, I think is just, it's realistic for a week, but when we get to week 8 in this process, it is no longer going to be feasible or a financial reality. And so that is why by a motion here in a second, I'm going to direct that you and the administration substantially ramp up and increase what our food service department is committed to doing over the next several weeks. The motion that I've made that we're discussing now is because you are going to need additional employees to facilitate that operation. It's going to have to be employees that are not at risk of, contracting the virus or, all of the associated things that we have to take into consideration. Your cafeteria managers, I've had the opportunity to see them start as cafeteria workers, washing the dishes, and I know more than anyone else in this entire district that you take care of your own and that you're thinking of them when we have these conversations and we provide this direction to you. And I know that given the latitude and the authority and the resources to do this, I just cannot in good conscience leave today's meeting without assurances that we are giving you the resources and the authority and the support to ensure that all 8,200 of our children are fed. And you know that better than anyone, that these families, face food insecurity, and I just have to make sure that we allocate the resources necessary so that transportation, food service, and everyone in between has the authority and the latitude to do that effectively. And I know more than anything that the mobile meal sites was a brainchild of you and Board President McLaughlin when he wasn't on the board yet, because our families cannot make it to the school sites. And we've acknowledged that in practice and historically by providing additional sites for food distribution. So again, the purpose of my motion is because we know that child nutrition is going to need to be staffed at 100% levels, if not more than what it has historically been, because we are now saying we're going to try and feed 8,000 children, not at 9 school sites, but across a 250 square mile school district. And there are school districts that have utilized their transportation department to ensure that drivers are still getting paid and that, they're getting their required number of hours to receive benefits and all of those things of that nature. And so it is being done elsewhere, and I think those ISDs are providing the resources to do it, and that's, I guess, my intent and what I hope my colleagues on the board will entertain and have a conversation about is we know that these kids will not make it to these food sites. We know that these families are not going to. We know that we have, elderly grandparents who, being the community that we are, grandma and grandpa are going to be taking care of a lot of these kids as mom and dad are still required to go to work. And I just don't see it feasible or possible for those families to visit the sites as proposed. I think short term, it's what we can do and what we should do, but we have to think of long term, and we all know that this is a long-term situation. And that's why Mrs. Costilla and my colleagues who have said, as see fit and, as the need and demand is there, the superintendent has the authority. I agree that I think he has the authority, but what I'm trying to do is grant him more authority to hire additional positions that aren't just those replacing individuals who are on paid leave.
Could I add?
Ms. Costilla had her hand up, and then I'll come to you, Ms. Halsey. Ms. Costilla?
I'd like to add do an amendment to that, because in my amendment is somewhere along the lines of Mr. Redondo's, but not as much. I'd like to move that we allow the superintendent the superintendent and his administrative staff, the flexibility to hire whatever staff is necessary in whatever department during this period of time, and that includes when it comes to the operations, instruction, staff, or anything that is needed based on the assessments that they're making, that we do that and allow him that flexibility. If we need to open up 2 or 3 more food sites, then let them make that decision, but allow him to say, we're going to do this based on the discussions that are taking place. So I'm more comfortable with that, because that's including money that is on there, but that's allowing them to say, well, this is where we're at, we need to go forward, and we need to hire either a child nutrition staff or anybody else that comes into play. That's what I'm more comfortable with. I think that we're doing what we can, but I don't want to tie anybody's hands. I, for one, am supportive of whatever this administration needs in regards to staff and resources.
So if I heard that correctly, it was an amendment to my original motion, and I'm supportive of that. So,
Can you hold off, because I've got more to it.
okay. Well, do we have to update based on?
Yeah, we have the
Food-based, right?
amendment. We have to see if there's a second for the offered amendment. and
I'll
then
second that amendment.
Question.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay. And then Ms. Halsey had her hand up for something else.
Yes, I agree entirely with Mr. Arredondo, and I agree with Ms. Costilla's desire to not only add for child nutrition and maintenance and transportation, but also for instruction and curriculum, and I think tutoring as needed, whether or not that's online tutoring or if there's a way that we're going to be able to do that in person going forward, just to make sure that we can try to keep kids learning as best as we can. Also, I would add social workers to that. I really think that we need to seriously consider how we are going to be providing mental health services to the community. So I would like to have an amendment to that would include that. But then my last point is that I think we also need to start enlisting or creating a plan for enlisting volunteers, because I know the people of this community who are able will want to help in any way that they can, and so I think we will have a need for extra staff, but I think we will also have a need for volunteers, and we can look at how we can best use volunteer power.
So, Mr. McLaughlin, since I made the original motion and Mrs. Castilla made a motion to amend it, I understand, at least based on Robert's Rules of Order, that if I objected to her amendment of my original motion, then we would have to vote. But since it's a friendly amendment and I am the one who, I guess, initiated this conversation, I'm fine to update it accordingly based on both Trustee Castilla's request and Trustee Ann Halsey's. So I guess, and as I recite this to make sure it captured everything everyone intended, it was to motion to authorize the superintendent or his designee the authority to hire temporary employees to fulfill critical positions in the school district due to employees being placed on paid leave.
Did that encompass your amendment, Ms. Costilla?
I don't I didn't want to make reference to anything in regards to paid leave. I think we're.
In the original motion.
Okay.
So I can
He
withdraw
encompassed
paid
your-
leave.
he incur- com- yeah, no.
So the motion would be then, a motion to authorize the superintendent or his designee the authority to hire temporary employees to fulfill critical roles in the school district.
Mr. McLaughlin, my motion was basically what I said, that I moved to allow the superintendent and his administration the flexibility to hire, to make decisions regarding instruction, operations, students, and staff. I feel very strongly that they need to have that flexibility, whether they need to address, for instance, even when Ms. Halsey made reference to social workers, they need to make that assessment as to whether they're going to need social workers or not, as to how many and how they're going to utilize them. This is what my motion is, that allow him that flexibility and his staff to make those decisions in regards to any additional staff, in regards to anything that is related to what's going on right now.
Right, I
And
think-
I'm trying to word it, and maybe I need to put it word
Yeah,
by
it was an
word.
amendment that I think was encompassed in his reread of his motion, which I think is entirely unnecessary because he's already told us he has the discretion. So it seems like kind of an academic conversation to me. I don't see, I mean, we can vote it, right? But it doesn't change the status quo, at least from how Mr. Cardona received the motion and now the amendment. So I don't know that we have to worry about the language that much. It's to give him discretion he feels he already has.
His was more specific to the food service, and hers is opening it up
Right,
to
but when
every.
when he adopted the amendment, he made his more broad in any area that would be needed, which encompassed what I heard from your amendment, which I still find
I just don't want
unnecessary.
any reference to paid leave, because.
He took that out,
No.
yeah.
Okay, well, then, if you took it out, that's fine. I just want to make sure that our staff
Call for the
knows.
vote.
Do I want to read it one more
So read to me the
time?
amendment, because I want to make sure what I'm voting for.
Motion to authorize the superintendent or his designee the authority to hire temporary employees.
Temporary employees?
Well, I guess,
I think to fulfill critical,
To fill critical positions.
okay, a motion to authorize the superintendent or his designee the authority to hire employees in critical positions.
during an unprecedented time of crisis that we need to be acting on immediately.
Yeah, I just don't, it's not, I mean, we're
Goes without
the
I don't
fifth,
think it's academic. I
we're the
think that
fifth largest employer in the city, from my understanding, and we're closed. So we have staff available in all sectors to pitch in, and they're all willing to pitch in wherever they're needed, and he has the discretion to reallocate tasks and make sure we get through it. And then additionally, he felt he had the discretion to hire temporary workers if he feels we exhaust the staff that we have. So I understand wanting to do something, I just, doesn't seem like this changes anything.
In addition to that, we have at least 1,500 volunteers that have been processed that we can
Can
call on.
utilize.
have we communicated with them yet?
We're doing staff first.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, we got a motion and a second, so it's been plenty discussed.
Still need to vote on
Yeah, that's a
Yes, because it's
motion
an
and a
actual
second.
motion you have to.
Mr. Adani, something to add to this?
No, I'm
motion?
just ready to
Oh,
vote.
Okay, all right, let's do it. All in favor?
Okay, which one are we voting? The
The one he read back,
He
the
read
motion
back.
which he felt incorporated your amendment,
And
for
it
which you're not
didn't,
sure.
it didn't have the phrase you didn't want in it.
So we're voting on that one.
That's correct.
Do you want it read
Because that
again?
is a motion and seconded and before us and discussed, and they've called for a vote, and
Do you want it
Let's do it.
read again?
No, I just, like I said, I just did not like the idea of having a paid leave on their
He
additional
took it
days.
off.
I believe he took, so
He
for
took
the
it off.
purposes of the vote, so everyone knows what we're voting on, Mr. Ardona, will you once again read your amended motion?
Yes, I will. Motion to authorize the superintendent or his designee the authority to hire employees to fulfill critical roles in the district.
All right, all in favor? All opposed? Did you vote, Mrs. Costia? You did against?
I am.
Okay, hold on. Ms. Hanson Ms. Juan Cruz has told me that Ms. Hanson can vote, and she is the tie-breaking vote. Ms. Hanson, do you vote for Mr. Arredondo's motion or against it? Uh-oh. Let me see. 38.
That's
Okay,
2:38 right now.
there's a yes at 10:38. I sent my vote yes. All right, this is a yes affirmative vote, so the motion carries 4-3.
Okay, I have another motion, President McLaughlin. So I motion that we authorize the superintendent of his designee the authority to hire a director of facilities and maintenance funded out of our district's maintenance and operations budget, and the authority to hire the director of construction management funded out of ISD bond funds.
I second.
So, without coming to the board.
Yes.
That's the distinction from the present. Okay. So this was discussed earlier. Are there any further questions about Mr. Arredondo's motion? All right. All in favor of delegating our authority with regard to the hire of the director? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Opposed?
I'm going to abstain from that.
1, 2, and 1 abstention. That carries 4-1. All right, Mr. Arredondo.
Thank you.
Then I'll come to you, Ms. Halsey. I saw his hand first.
So, Mr. Boone, I guess later on in this meeting before we adjourn, it's my expectation that either I or one of my colleagues is going to make a motion that we embark on this endeavor in collaboration with transportation and the entire infrastructure of the school district to try and feed every ISD child if possible. I've seen places like Somerset ISD essentially using online technologies to, I guess, get a survey and capture how many individual households need food for their children. I guess if direction is provided by this board later on in the meeting to try and embark on let's feed everyone if possible, I would assume a similar model would be used to capture that, and utilizing Andrew's communication infrastructure would be critical to that role. I think more than anything, it would alleviate at least my concerns as an individual trustee. A lot of this is, anecdotal. I've heard from a grandparent who lives at the Allen Wood Housing Authority who said, I don't have a car, I'm watching my grandkids, we're not going to get to a food site. So that's one that I know of. That could be the only one out of all 8,200 kids, because that's the only person that I've heard from. So I guess that is like my hope and my expectation is that if this board directs staff to look at what we can do in regards to food service, that we obviously have a framework in place to see what the need is across the community in the exact same way that we would do that similarly with Wi-Fi and hotspots. But again, we granted the administration the authority to provide hotspots for every ISD child if necessary, and I think we should guarantee that that resources are being allocated to ensure that every child is fed across the district for that time period as well.
Ms. Halsey.
Mr. Arredondo, I don't disagree. I just, I think that doing a survey of that nature is somewhat duplicative, and I think it's also the situation is going to be changing so fluidly that that information seems to me like it could quickly become out of date. We already know that at least 3/4 of our students are food insecure in some way, shape, or form. We also already have the here comes the bus technology in place for our bus routes, right? So is there a reason that we can't use the technology that we already have and do some sort of sign up, like have people post that, yes, please drop off at my house? I mean, tell me why we can't start bus delivery on Monday.
We don't know what, first, we don't know what we're going to actually need to do, but, now you're asking us to mobilize the entire transportation department to send buses out and putting employees at risk. Like, we need to start with our plan first before the board actually modifies it. Like, we have to be done to see where our need is. I hear Mr. Arredondo, I get it. I have community members that say this, the same thing. I've heard from some parents, and we worry about that. But we need to start with our plan, like, first, instead of trying to solve 100% of things we don't know. And we don't know what's gonna happen. But you're asking us to just call the transportation drivers in. I mean, it's gonna require us to bring them all in, and now we're doing the things that go against what the city and the county wants, which is you're gonna have more than 10 people in a site. I mean, logistically, we bring one bus driver in, load that bus, send them out, bring one bus driver in. Like, how is that gonna look for you? I mean, if you can't have more than 10 people and 45 bus drivers show up to check in, and some of them are sick, like, you're really asking us to potentially cause issues in the community?
Well, I think we're going to have other bus drivers that don't have routes that they'll be running next week. Texas State bus drivers are.
They're not employees of the district. We have to.
No, but I'm saying this is the point, is that we need to be preparing to hire additional employees to staff these critical services that the community is going to become ever more dependent on as this crisis quickly ramps up. And I'm afraid that if we decide that we're sticking with the plan that we have in place right now, that by Thursday, when we haven't had people show up for lunches because they can't get in their cars and put their kids in their car, then suddenly we're going to say, well, I guess there's no need, while the illness is spiking, and while that is all, we're dealing with the ramifications and then trying to then ramp up and get transportation workers in. Seems like we're going to be way behind the 8 ball if we put into place those pipelines now, so that we can say, okay, we have these workers that have already processed their applications, we can call them in on the rolling basis and have a plan for how bus drivers are going to get loaded up and through the line without having more than 10 people. I really think that this is very, very critical, that we plan for how this works when we have
We are planning.
few people that can actually show up.
We are planning. Just as a reminder, next week is day 1. So we are off for Christmas break for 2.5 weeks, and we don't plan for this. And so we are treating everything as starting March 23rd is day 1. And they have already started working on a plan to work with the principals to get with parents who need us to deliver food. And so I think we need to let them actually start implementing their plan before we like bring lots of people in and potentially do the opposite of what we think we're doing, which is helping the situation. Let them start their plan. Then you have us. It's easier for us to go out because we've been vetted. We have several bus drivers for Texas State that are actually teachers in our district that we can call in. One of them I know has a medical issue. One of them was a former cross country. They drive buses for Texas State. We can call them in. We have substitutes who potentially could help us with Mr. Boone, who we've already vetted, that we can bring in to take care of and pay. We have tutors for Avid that are maybe some college kids who are in those areas that you're talking about that are trying to earn some extra money. We can call in because we vetted them already. And then we have the volunteers that Dr. Baez talked about that we know we have vetted if we need to, that they can then tell us, hey, we're going to need X number of people to do this. We want not to put our parent liaisons out because they're title funded and many of them are over the age of 60 and have health issues. And so what I'm asking is let them start their plan and we will adjust daily as we need to. That's really what we need.
Mr. Addenda?
Mr. Superintendent, I have no doubt in my mind that your staff have gone above and beyond the call of duty and service over the last several days. And an assumption can be made that this is obviously just the beginning of the ISD in our community asking the school district and its employees to do things that we were never, I think, elected or hired or even trained to do. And Mrs. Costilla made reference to that earlier in the meeting, that there is no handbook, there is no TASB or TASA workshop of how to manage a pandemic in your community. And so, we're all figuring figuring this out as it goes along. I guess my concern is, this board convenes and we've been agendized to give you a lot of latitude and a lot of authority to initiate the ISD's response to our ongoing public health crisis. But I was instructed, or I was told, that we were meeting today to give you time to formulate this plan, which understandably you needed time to formulate it, but I'm sitting here on the dais with nothing in front of me in regards to a plan. Do you have my support as superintendent of schools? Absolutely. Do I trust in your leadership? Yes, but if I leave this meeting today and somebody asks me, well, what's the ISD's plan, or what did you vote on, or what did you authorize him to do, I have to say, well, his assistant superintendents and the superintendent said they were going to do these things and it's going to be taken care of. And you can understand how that, as an elected official and as somebody who is elected to come up here and ensure that our community is advocated for, it's difficult for me to do because I feel like I'm abdicating my responsibilities by saying, well, I was told there was a plan. I was told that they're going to figure it out day by day. And I can offer that, I have confidence in the superintendent and his administration, but telling a family who doesn't know how they're going to provide meals for their children, breakfast and lunch over the next several weeks, it's difficult to have that conversation and say, well, they're going to have a plan and they're going to, respond as more information is available to them. And I guess that is the predicament that I am in as a school board member representing the most impoverished area of our ISD. Is I exit today's meeting and I say, well, I know Mr. Boone, he's a great guy. He's going to make sure our kids are fed. And I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to do that. It's just, we leave here today and there's a lot of unknowns. And that is the challenge that I'm experiencing right now sitting up here.
So am I to assume that you did not receive the plan that as superintendent I sent to y'all that was a pandemic plan that was in draft form?
The one that we
Mrs. Halsey
received
responded to?
Thursday?
Did y'all not receive something from me that was an original draft plan? I said this will adapt as we go.
I received the original draft plan that in its first iteration said the ISD will defer to the Red Cross and the National Guard to provide meals to our community. And that is the most recent hard copy plan that I've been presented. So
Correct,
obviously
but that is a hard copy plan that you received.
Yes.
You didn't, so you can tell your constituents that something had begun.
And that the first
And
iteration.
it's a plan and it's a draft.
And that
that's
the
supposed-
first iteration said we were going to defer to the Red Cross and the
Correct.
National Guard.
Correct, and I also said that Mr. Boone hadn't updated the plan yet because he'd still been in conversations. When you met with me in my office, we did update all that and talk about that. Correct?
Yes, but the last plan that I was provided,
But it's an adaptive plan. If you would like, I'd be more than happy to have him update what we have, and then I'll resend that to y'all again.
Ms. Halsey?
I would like us to know when we are leaving this meeting what we're going to be communicating to the community at large in the next 24 hours in terms of what we are doing, what we anticipate we will need to do, how we are preparing for that, because I think people are very worried. And because we have really strong relationships with our families, throughout the community, with business partners, I think that many people are looking to the ISD for leadership and guidance and will be more assured and less prone to panic if they know that the people that they know and trust are working to take care of them and to meet their needs through this developing crisis. And so I want to be sure that our communication is clear and comprehensive and as specific as possible, while also allowing for the flexibility to change the situation as needed. But I think that it's important that we bring those questions up and that we're talking about those things so that it's not a surprise a week from now, right? Because I don't think a week ago we anticipated this is where we would be now.
3 days ago, we didn't anticipate it.
So I would like that conversation to be facilitated in that way so that we can communicate very clearly with our families.
Yeah, we can do that, and we'll get y'all an updated plan, because it's going to have to be updated on a daily basis.
Ms. Costilla?
Mr. Superintendent, and I think we've covered several things today that we can communicate to our constituents out there, to the members of the school district out there, as far as food, as far as instruction, as far as distribution. We've covered several things, and I much rather that you just cover that in very simplest forms, because that way, if I have something, I can very easily say, this is what's going to be covered, this is what we're doing, and as things change, our superintendent, our administration has the flexibility to make the necessary changes. If, for instance, you need more staff, you're able to get more staff. If tutors are needed or whatever, that's going to be covered. To me, that would be a very simple thing to do, rather than for you to sit down and do something that's going to be very tiring for me to go through, rather than just summarize what we just took care of right now.
Correct. We just so the community is aware, all districts are kind of partnering with each other right now to figure this out. So like McAllen ISD has a one-pager that is a really good communication with their community that Andrew has access to. So we are planning on putting communication that breaks it down by chunks, like food service, instruct, TLA, whatever it is, so that he can send it out with resources and stuff. But part of that was to wait until we got through the board meeting, right, so we could hear what y'all were saying. And so then Friday, he's going to start like daily sending information home.
Well, if I'm having a conversation with a parent and regarding to the distribution of food, and they say, well, these are the places, but we might have additional ones.
Correct.
And this is something that I can tell the parent, is that it's not in stone that these are going to be the only ones. We might have some more, but the superintendent will keep us abreast as to other ones, and the community as well.
We have asked our parents and our teachers to be patient with us as we adapt and be flexible. And so, yeah, that's going to happen. And as we open, we will change. Part of our lag time in that communication is Andrew writes it. He then sends it to somebody who's at home, who translates it for us and then gets it back, because we want to make sure that we translate it in everything we do with English and Spanish. And that's what we're working on with like the curriculum, because we did the curriculum real fast in only English, and now Dr. Valadez and the team are working to translate all that into Spanish. So there is like some lag time, but we get it out as fast as we can.
Okay. I'm trying to put a bow on this food discussion. It seems that we understand what's going to happen the first week. We understand where the 3 sites are going to be the first week. There could be additional sites entering week 2. I've heard discord, I don't want to characterize it, but yeah, some concern that we're not going to be able to reach enough kids. I share that concern. I think, if we have 100 to 200 per site, that would be pretty impressive considering what you usually experience in the summer. It's not unprecedented that you've tried to feed when school's closed. You do it every year. And so I think long-term, if this is a long-term closure, and right now I think we're April 5th, I think was the date that we know we're closed through, but if we get into May or something, I share Ms. Halsey and Mr. Arredondo's concerns that we're going to have to figure out a way to go bigger. And I know that there's USDA restrictions on how exactly you can get food to kids. And that's one of the problems with the community or everyone putting it on the schools to solve food insecurity is we could be closed. And hopefully we're not the only ones experiencing this problem. All these districts are going to have all of these problems, and I expect we're getting daily more flexibility, right? It would be most ideal if we could deliver, if we're going to do deliveries, a week's worth of food that parents could prepare if this is a long-term closure. But we can't do that. We're not allowed to do that by law right now. So running out pre-prepared lunches on a bus route at this point, I think is not the best solution. I would like to do more than that and also have it be less deliveries where we're bringing workers into confined spaces and where, people don't even know they're carrying this thing for 3 days, and if they deliver 100 lunches, and that's a problem. So I understand the restlessness and wanting to get it all right now, and fulfill your responsibility to your constituents. I hear that wholeheartedly. I think we've got to see how the first week goes and see what more we know. Every day, I feel like I learn a week's worth of new material. So I'm hoping that I'm planning to have another specially called meeting after the first week, and then we can help guide how this plan adjusts, and as we learn more from Mr. Cardona and his team.
I just wanted to add something. I think that if we're going to judge where we need the bus delivery, it would probably be in the Redwood area. If you have a very low number in Redwood, then that would probably be a transportation issue. And then you can build your plan to try to get more breakfasts and more lunches out there. That's the area that I think is one of our neediest areas, and I think the teachers would agree that if those areas are not being fed, that would be where we could focus some energy and some time and some money.
And can I say something? Sure. Generally, in the summertime, the kids, because we're at Redwood Baptist Church, they just walk up, you know, and that's another issue that with, you know,
the contact.
So, I mean, it's a damn me if I do, damn me if I don't. So, you know, it's if one of them's contagious and or one of, you know, Brother Michael's people. So generally they walk up. Right now, USDA's to avoid the human-to-human contact. They're suggesting that people be in cars to do it.
Unless you set up perimeters like with ribbons where we don't want you closer than this.
Well, Doug and I are supposed to call Brother Mike to kind of get a game plan together when we're done, so. And another thing I'm just gonna say, I'm looking at the plan that I sent to Doug on the COP, and there is huge amounts of information about child nutrition of our plan. It's on there right now. I just looked. So I just want to put that out there.
Ms. Halsey, you had a question?
Yeah, I wanted to hear what Mr. Wozniak was going to say.
Okay.
and then I've
And
got a
Doug
question.
Wozniak, Director of School Safety and Transportation. So I think you all know now that we have 5 cases in Hayes County, and Hayes County put out their little blurb last night, right? And it specifically talked about the one case that's not travel-related. And in those, they specifically said, it is believed that we have community spread in Hayes County. And that changes the whole ballgame, because now we're not just talking about these individuals that we knew that are isolated. When you talk about community spread, now it's worst-case scenario of that, you know, that compound effect. And I can guarantee you we've had discussions behind closed doors, especially with food service, about every possible scenario, and we've been very reflective on, you know, bigger picture and saying that it's not just about going big, because we can point specifically to Houston, who we feel like screwed up majorly by opening a bunch of schools and bringing in 1,000 kids and then they stood in line for hours going against. So it's kind of a matter of, just because other school districts are doing it, we don't automatically feel that that's the right way to do it. So we've been very reflective and have multiple hours of conversations about this, and we take it very seriously. But, you know, you could point to, well, Houston's doing it this way. Well, we've agreed behind closed doors, we don't feel like they did it the right way. They've specifically exposed, you know, each other with human-to-human contact. And that's kind of what we talk about in every specific case right now, is how can we avoid the human-to-human contact?
Ms.
So
Halsey?
I have 2 questions. Mr. Wozniak and Mr. Boone, if on Monday we do the sites as planned, and we, based on whatever happens, y'all determine that, you know, we need additional sites, how quickly can you act to say, can you open another site by Wednesday? Would it be by Friday? How quickly can that happen?
One day.
Yeah, I mean, we get another delivery on Wednesday, but we have enough food. We could open Mendez.
But I'm saying, in terms of the regulations, you can get it done within 24 hours to clear those?
He heard something different. He heard that until the application's approved, that they're not reimbursable meals. I heard that if, they were saying, if whatever comes up, if you write, hey, we need to open another school, and we did the application as soon as we wanted to do that, but it wasn't approved right away, if I write that down, they're gonna accept it.
Okay, so, Mr. President, I would like us to consult with our lawyer, with Mr. Cruz, and find out about our board taking action to give the superintendent authority to make the decision that he believes to be in the best interest of this children of this community, even if it does not entirely comply with the guidelines that have come that day from whichever agency it is that's continually changing. From, is it the
TDA, he's on a TDA in a Region 13
Right.
call. My source was Commissioner Morath at 3
So the TDA rules, which seem to be rapidly changing, and so being able to act in what you believe to be the best interest of the children of this district, to include also the possibility of distributing grab-and-go meals to cars that have one child in them but can receive up to 5 meals.
So I would guess this goes to your concern, like families that we need to feed, like, he's talking about reimbursable meals, so like if you were to authorize us to, when we have issues like Mr. Trustee Armando said, where we have families that need it, that's where we need to see guidance of, can we go buy, because it's a pandemic, can we go buy food and deliver it to families who can't leave their house?
Yes, I mean, I want that, but I think I want on Monday, if a mom shows up and she's got one kid in the car and she's like, I need 3 bags, that we can give her 3 bags. At the very least, I
I
want
think
that.
ultimately what will happen is he's going to give them 3 bags, and we'll get reimbursed for one, and the rest will come out of the fund balance.
And
we'll
I don't
give
have a
them-
problem
I'm
with that.
totally fine
That's
with
not a
that. I
problem.
want to feed more people.
Correct.
Yeah, we
That's what
definitely,
we're-
we would spend
that's
the
what we're
money
gonna
if
do.
USDA didn't reimburse, but Mr. Boone, I think you told us in previous conversations that if you purchase goods with federal funds, you're subject to that restriction. So my only concern is if you're using, like, just us reimbursing it and saying, hey, we decided that wasn't a good rule. I mean, we'll write the check. We can get 7 people to vote for that right now, right? But I don't know that you can do that. Like just because we compensate the money, I'm concerned about that
Well,
law you're
We
breaking.
can, I mean, because, at first, I put on there adult meals, and Doug goes, dummy, you want people handling money, and I go, I didn't think about that. So, yes, we could, and we would just it'd be a catered. We would in his example, the mom wants 3 and there's only 1, we would have to say on our official tick sheet 1, and then we would have on another district paid 2.
I want us to do that Monday.
Okay.
Mr. O'Donnell.
I know that we're giving the superintendent and his staff a lot of latitude to do some things, but just for the sake of my conscience, I'm going to make a motion that we direct the superintendent or his designee to increase ISD food service operations and meal distributions that allows for the opening of additional grab-and-go distribution sites and/or curbside, neighborhood, or door-to-door meal drop-off programming based on community need.
I second.
Okay.
So the intent of my motion, so my colleagues understand what I'm going for, is obviously as Mr. Boone and as Superintendent Cardona and as Doug get information as to the best, safest, most efficient way to do this, this affords them the ability to open up additional sites, deputize their transportation department to do curbside, door-to-door, neighborhood drop-off, whatever that looks like based on information gathered by the ISD and/or directive from TEA or USDA or whatever parties are looped into this. And I know Ms. Halsey has kind of expressed it, but again, so my intent of based on community need is that that captures the needs of not only 18 years and younger individuals, but families as well if they stop at these food distribution sites or try and participate in what could be a door-to-door neighborhood delivery program.
I can reach out to Gene Martin, he's over HUD Housing for Allenwood, CM Allen, and Chapultepec.
Yes, sir.
And we have, in the summer, we had issues with staffing then, because nobody most of our employees didn't want to work. And so I made the deal with Gene because, long story short, is they were getting from Austin and they were prepackaged, but the kids liked our meals better. So I made the deal with Gene. If he would staff it, we would bring the food there. I can reach out to Gene. I really didn't think about it until you said HUD housing. And we could probably work a deal where his people dispense it, and those 3 sites, there's a lot of need in those sites, I'd have to go on and add them to the application, and, but I don't see he's gonna be all gung-ho. I worry when I hear delivery.
I understand, and I think that's great. I think if we can make that happen quickly, that would be
Yeah.
fantastic. I think also I want to reiterate that I know of at least 200 food service employees that were laid off yesterday. Restaurants across town are shuttering, and so we have a lot of wait staff that have experience in food handling, and I am all for bringing them on and helping to do the distribution. I don't want to leave the distribution to the sites to do.
Yeah, I don't think there's gonna be an issue with production. I mean, we may have to, get Andrew and some other, but production is not gonna be an issue of getting the food and getting it into bags. The distribution part is gonna be.
So the other day, Mike and I sat in on a call that was kind of a regional food call. And it was, food pantries, it was Meals on Wheels, it was all the regional, the local, the state players. And they are also obviously working behind the scenes, and apparently they're gonna go with the, what was it, Andrew, 211? It's gonna be like a number that we can call. So we're going to communicate that as soon as we make sure that we have our facts straight about exactly what all this means. But that was a very specific call to address local families and then how everybody can kind of work together. And so
Say more about what 211 will be?
so it's going to be a number that we believe that, that you can call to get exactly, exact information on where to get food from all those agencies that have combined forces. So we got to just make sure that that's exactly what they were talking about, because it was one of those calls we really couldn't comment. So I'll get more information from Rachel on that, and we'll see where we go from there, and that'll be communicated by Andrew.
And the faith-based, I met with the faith-based communities Thursday out at St. Martin's School, and they're trying to get a database, because they're logistically trying to figure this out, to see what services are provided to what families, because you could go to one place, you could go to one place, and you get 3 different, and none of them talk to each other, so they're trying to get there's some kind of Christian database that they can get access, and they can refer people to the right place. It's a model out of New Braunfels, the Tree of Life, I think has a nonprofit that connects families with all this, and they're trying to get that ramped up pretty quickly.
Ms. Villalpando and then Mr. Arredondo.
My question is this, so we get student reimbursed meals, and if we go spread all these other sites, then we're gonna have to pay from our school funds. Potentially.
Well, no, I can add,
I'm separating your budget from, and I'm not,
I
you
can
probably
add,
get more money.
any sites, but then if, for your example, if there's more than, there's only USDA regulations as we're speaking now, which could have changed by the time we came in here and right now. As of right now or earlier, if there was this one kid in the car, school, child nutrition and we're running under the seamless summer option, can only claim 1. But we can give them 10 if you guys want that, if they think the need, but it'll be a district expense.
A district expense that will come from fund balance, probably?
Correct. Well,
I just wanted to make that clear, because that's what I'm understanding. And besides we have other sites out in the rural areas that could be served also, and plenty in San Marcos. So we're going to try to have more? Okay.
Mr. Arredondo.
So it's my understanding that the employees that we're not calling in, and we're going to enact this potentially in the next item is that they're going to get paid, food service employees are going to get paid whether they come to work or not, because we're guaranteeing that as, like Mr. McLaughlin said, the 5th largest employer in the ISD. So I think the financial reality of food services is we're already going to get hit in the teeth because we're going to be paying employees who aren't coming in to work, and we're not being reimbursed for those meals. So it behooves the ISD to serve as many reimbursable meals for the next 8 weeks as humanly possible, because we're going to be paying those child nutrition employees whether we're serving those meals or not. So I guess that's why it's my intent, or why I'm, advocating so heavily that we give the ISD and the administration the latitude to explore every and all option humanly possible, allowable under current guidelines. It is not my role or responsibility to figure out how you do it safely. That is obviously you as employees do that, to follow all parameters and health code guidelines and refrigeration expectations and all of that. But again, I think the reality is child nutrition will continue paying its employees, and we should. The only way that we capture some of that money is if we distribute more reimbursable meals. Mr. Boone, I think you've illustrated that you know who to contact in the community in regards to additional food distribution sites and what that looks like, and obviously other ISDs are, using last week and this week as, experimentation weeks to see what works for them, and I have no doubt in my mind that the superintendent, in collaboration with food service, is going to do the best practice that serves our needs and the expectations of our community. But I guess that, again, is kind of the reality that I'm faced with is, we're going to be losing a lot from food service if we don't increase the number of reimbursable meals, because we're still paying employees like we should. But again, I think that even that's more of an impetus of why we should try and distribute and serve as many as possible over the next couple of weeks and months.
And if we do more, if we do more sites, just like here at high school, when Alice called the employees, there was at least 2 or 3 of them said, oh, I want to come to work. And they're not in the preconditions, and they're, young. So I guarantee that we can, the food production part, it's not going to be that difficult. I mean, a regular school, elementary school, will do sack lunches for, 500 kids with, a manager and 5 employees. So it's not, the food production is not going to be an issue. Now, God forbid it's something, because there is a thing, I'm talking to Carrie at Labatt, if it goes to national emergency and Red Cross, they come into Labatt and take all their food. Then we beat up the creek. But, but at that point, hopefully the Red Cross will be feeding everybody, so there's so many different, things that are going on. But food production at this point, if we wanted to add Mendez by Monday, I could get enough people where we could do it. It's not an issue. I can get with Gene and say, hey, if you can staff it, I may need some help to get the meals from wherever we're producing them to the place, but food production will not be an issue. And we got a huge order coming in Monday. We got a bunch of food in stock. We got another one on order on Wednesday. So, the food production, don't worry about it. And I'll take care. If I'm being told to open Mendez, we will open Mendez. And I will do with the HUD housing, I'll get in touch with Gene when we get done. And if he's in, hopefully he's in, and we'll go from there.
Ms.
Thank
Castillo?
Just to clarify, Mr. Boone, regarding following up Mr. Arredondo's comments, we're increasing by serving more, the USDA will reimburse more, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
However, there's guidelines for that, so regarding what Ms. Halsey was making reference, that if you can only take 1 child, but you have 3 more, but they're only gonna reimburse you for that one that they see according to their guidelines. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
So we can increase the numbers, but if they're not all in the vehicle at the time that it's delivered, then we really don't increase that because they're only gonna reimburse you for what they see.
As of
So we're gonna have to.
5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. That's,
according
you
to-
know, and it
right.
could have changed today.
And I don't have a problem with reimbursing the, for the other ones, but are we talking about feeding the whole community here? Or are we talking about addressing the need of our school population and maybe, I don't know, I guess their parents? What are we doing here?
Well, that's always the, how do I say that? That, you know, when we give them the meals, does that kid actually get the meal and consume the meal? Because it could go home and mom or dad or uncle or whoever, you know, and it kind of defeats the purpose. But unfortunately, when it goes into the car or the kid we recognize as a reimbursable meal, I was told 20 years ago, you're not the child nutrition police. What happens after that, I have no control over. I'm hoping that the kid is going to be the one to consume it, but we can't guarantee
Well, maybe
that.
this is an issue as far as feeding, so many would be an issue for even the city and the county to address. City being that there's a lot of citizens in this community who don't have children or that have a need. Maybe that's a conversation for others to have with the city council and the mayor and say, you know, there is a need here. We are addressing the needs of our children and maybe even their parents. But you know, once again, you know, if they're not gonna be able to be in the car all at 4 at the same time, you're only gonna get reimbursed for one.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there'll probably be, that'll get known and everybody's going to say, I want 5, I want, you know. So, I mean, that's your call. I mean, if I give them 5, you know, is there a limit? I mean, I'll do what I'm told. That's,
But the pending motion is simply to provide the administration all flexibility to make decisions that would further distribute food.
And every operational menu, location, means, method, mode, methodology, justification is on them.
Right.
Yes.
So we
For
haven't
our
gotten.
school population.
What's it?
Based,
Well,
based on the motion, it's based on community need.
as Mr. Cardone and the administration see it at the moment. The pending motion, just so I understand it.
Yes.
Okay. It's not a mandate that we do 5 or something like that, not at this point.
It just says based on community need, and as we defer to the superintendent and his designees to do these things, it's up to them to make that decision.
Okay. I
I
can.
had a question.
Oh, Ms. Villapampa.
My question's about the managers that you called to work. Of course, they would be off if we weren't having to do the meals, right? So is there extra compensation for them?
I got that, Mike. Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Our DEA local provides for premium pay for hourly workers, and so they will receive time and a half when they work.
I'm so glad because.
It's part of the resolution that you guys have today, too. Yes, ma'am.
It's part of the resolution.
Okay. So we got a motion and a second.
Ready for the
Any,
vote?
any further questions? None? All in favor? Okay, 6-1. That's imposed on account of administration has a plan that meets needs of students. All right, that should take us into Roman 5, which is discussion regarding resolution, which has been prepared for us by the administration.
I'm sorry, I wasn't finished before. I have additional questions. I thought we were just moving from food service to something else. Can we take a break?
Okay, hold on. Yeah, let's take a break. Let's take 5 minutes.
they're on a 240 calendar, so they work during spring break anyway, cleaning, and then they're kind of pooling their resources, and James can intervene. So we only have 4 of those misters, so they pulled them, so they're going campus, the misters that spray and stick, but they've just been conducting more in-depth cleaning since kids are not here, because they're already here anyway. And they'll continue to come in as next week also.
On all campuses?
Yes. We have certain, I think
Any areas that are used.
Perfect, thank you.
So the dais was disinfected and all your old staff?
everything was clean, yes.
Great, I especially appreciate those people and know, the service that they're providing is really fundamental. And my next question is about how we are providing childcare for essential employees who do have to report, like maintenance workers and y'all. And by extension, do we have plans for providing childcare to emergency workers, to first responders, to our local community healthcare workers?
So currently, if the student is under the age of 5, we would not be able, or it would be difficult for us to create satellite daycare or childcare, because our CDC currently holds the licensing for that. And if we created unlicensed satellite sites, then that would jeopardize the CDC and their license.
Can we not open CDC next week?
Right now, based on the staff that we have at the CDC, we have approximately, out of 10 employees, we have 6 employees that fall into the at-risk category.
So is that an area that we could start staffing up, or that we could pull staff from other places?
If we pull staff from other places, we need to make sure that they have the certification, because the certification for childcare is entirely different than a teacher certification. So that would be a Ms. Vogel question.
Do we need a board amendment to make that happen? Do we need to vote on opening up CDC to the children of essential staff and the service providers as we are able?
I think we need to figure out who in the district has the certification first, that we can just kind of reapportion to CDC. Does that make sense? That we can move.
And then who has children that are under 5 that are considered essential staff? You still have to do all that.
And I thought we were trying not to gather kids.
I
In
thought
small
we
groups,
weren't.
but you can gather children
May
in small
add
groups.
some
I mean,
more to this, please. And the new rule also that went into effect with COVID-19 is that as students enter, they have to enter individually. The parent cannot come in, and we have to check their temperature. As of right now, there is a shortage on the scanners that are to be utilized, and we have 3 scanners that are at the CDC. So we would need to see where we could get additional scanners, where the housing would look like, and then making sure that students are not ill. Because if a student is ill, we cannot accept them into the facility as well.
Ms. Castillo and then Mr. Arredondo.
There's rules regarding capacity at the center. And how many are they authorized for?
That I don't know, I'll need to
I don't
ask
think
Ms.
it's,
Vogel.
I used to regulate that at one point in time, and I know that capacity is not very high. So they would have to have the increase in capacity, but my question is also along that line is going to be, is that providing services to babysitting for responders and other people? I don't
something
think we
that
need to
states
be
across the
getting-
country are doing. Actually, governors in other states are ordering their public schools to provide childcare services for emergency workers, because our hospitals in other cities are at capacity, out of beds, out of ventilators, and we need doctors being able to report to take care of the sick. So we do have a responsibility to take care of the children.
We are authorized for 69 at the CDC, and we have the staff for 60 ratio, and that's what we currently have.
Mr. Arredondo.
Thank you, President McLaughlin. Mr. Superintendent, it's my understanding that the city of San Marcos is currently formulating their own response because they have linesmen and police officers and firefighters and all the things that need to happen to keep our community functioning during the, days and weeks ahead. I understand that there are legal guidelines about the Child Development Center and things of that nature, but if it's the intent of Ms. Halsey to grant you additional authority to collaborate with, CTMC and SMPD and the fire department and the city of San Marcos to obviously, again, work out the logistics of how we stay in compliance with all of the already enacted guidelines, but also the CDC safety guidelines, I'm inclined to grant you the authority and the, latitude to do those things, because like Ms. Halsey said, I know, for instance, of a firefighter whose 3 children are in the ISD. And, obviously, I want, that firefighter, that police officer to report to duty and, to work at the hospital, whatever that looks like. So I understand that programmatically it might be difficult, and I don't want to take on so many roles that the ISD essentially has 500 people at it anyway. I don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, if we think creatively we can, serve and support these roles and these employees and these initiatives accordingly. And it's my understanding that as long as you don't call it childcare or daycare, then, it's just some people hanging out at the San Marcos Activity Center, and there's some adults watching some kids for, a couple of hours a day. Obviously, that's something that staff and the administration would have to navigate with the city of San Marcos. But like I said, it's my understanding that they're already exploring those opportunities. But obviously, as we have a labor force and a workforce that is uniquely positioned to help contribute to those conversations, dialogues, and programs, I'm ready to take action on that, granting the administration the authority to pursue child care services for whatever categories Ms. Halsey had previously listed that I don't have enumerated in front of me.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Speak on the.
Well, I think it's very great that we're thinking about all these things that we could do. That to me is more like a collaboration, having to do collaboration with the city and what they can provide too, since it's an employee of the city. I understand there's students here, but I mean, there's only so many things that we can, as a school district, can do. So, but
What I can do is, I can have Dr. Baez Monday reach out to, some of the, you were talking about hiring people, so maybe we can look at some of the daycares that are already maybe they shut down, and they have people who have the certifications. We can reach out to Wonder World and some of the other ones that are around and see if maybe they have people that.
It's just my understanding that obviously as the city of San Marcos requires first responders, EMTs, and as, CTMC asks that all of their medical professionals come into work as scheduled, as planned, because of the ISD's closure, that obviously complicates things for those critical individuals in our community. So granting you all the authority and the latitude to manage that and work in collaboration with possibly Hays County or the city of San Marcos, I'm being very hesitant to say child care or daycare, because obviously that brings in a lot of legal. Babysitting, yes, exactly. So that is what I'm trying to give you all the authority and the ability and the latitude to do, is provide these services to those critical employees, especially as we require some staff to also report to duty to fulfill some obligations on the ISD side as well. Obviously, offering that changes the food service programming side if we're providing babysitting services for first responders or whatever that looks like. Obviously, all of that is going to be figured out on the administration's end, and I have confidence that y'all will be able to navigate that as we, make these very big asks to serve our community in this time of need. And I agree with Mrs. Villapando that the ISD for the next several weeks might be doing things that we have never been asked to do before, nor should we ever have to do under normal circumstances. I think these are anything but normal circumstances as you see the effects of the public health crisis nationally and globally. And I would just like to reiterate the fact that I think the ISD is uniquely positioned to fill in some of these, critical roles, hopefully just for the next several weeks.
I do know, I texted Chief Stapp, who's the safety, I guess, director, and he said that the city is starting a day camp staffed by their Park and Recs people, starting Monday for their critical personnel.
A day camp
I don't
is
know
a
what that
good
means.
way
They
to
call it day camp.
Ms. Halsey?
So I think that's great. I think that, we unfortunately are probably going to have more need than service at a critical point. So I think that taking a collaborative approach with the city, with the county, whomever, is a great idea. I also would like to reinforce the fact that we have 7 elementary school campuses with gymnasiums, with equipment, with resources already stocked, with maintenance that is already working. And then we have an entire pre-K campus, and we have CDC. So as creative as we can get in terms of using those spaces so that we're able to disperse the populations. We certainly do not want 500 kids at the activity center on Monday, but we also want nurses to be able to show up and do their shifts without having to worry about their babies. So I would please, please, please encourage you to think outside of the box about how the district can take a leadership role in providing this fundamental service to the community at large to ensure the safety of our kids and the ability of our critical personnel to continue doing their jobs. I just read this morning that in one state, they've just declared that, the governor of that state has declared that grocery store workers are now considered essential first responder employees, and so they're providing the childcare for grocery store workers. I mean, I think we should really be, if we aren't doing that on Monday, I think we need to think about how we could do that in the coming weeks.
Okay. Is there anything else? Okay, that takes us to item 5.
I'm sorry, do we need a motion to do that, or
There wasn't one pending, I don't know.
I'm asking the superintendent, do you need a motion to start?
We'll start researching and reach out to the city and the county to see.
But you feel like you have authority to open up a
day
facility
camp.
for day
A
camp?
day camp, a day
If
camp.
need be.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 5, discussion action regarding resolution to pay employees' compensation due to school closure caused by COVID-19. Resolution I handed out at the beginning of the meeting. It's been prepared for us in advance. Is there presentation, discussion, questions?
No presentation other than to say this is what's referenced in DEA local, and it says the school board shall provide for employees, and after a closure, the school board will consider a resolution. And so this is the resolution for your consideration.
This resolution provides that there will be no pay disruption for any of our staff.
Correct.
Okay, Ms. Halsey?
Does this resolution provide for the payment of substitute teachers?
No, it does not.
So,
I think the issue with substitutes is you have some that are retired teachers, and so if you go and do this and include them, this potentially could affect their
Pass.
personal annuities and TRS and impose penalties on them. And so they purposely choose to work hours that keep them under the threshold of.
Just like I do,
Yeah, of not getting,
beyond the amount.
because
they're
we didn't
stating.
realize the impact until they said it also affects, if they have like a personal annuity outside, it goes against that as well.
But we could authorize it and grant it, and if I was rehire, substitute teacher, and it would impact me negatively, I could choose not to take it, theoretically.
Maybe.
And many of the substitutes work less than 2 days per week.
Mhm.
So,
They would have to sit Monday and figure out who would actually qualify under the 75 days. And
so are you asking for, have they worked a long-term sub situation, or?
I want to make sure that we are compensating substitutes who have been working consistently and, or that we count on, that we depend on, and that we are able to continue providing them some sort of remuneration during this extended closure.
Why would we need substitutes?
Regulations are going to be if you do a long-term sub versus you sub once a week versus your rehire.
we have to see guidance from Mr. Cruz on that, because we don't.
You can
We
create your.
know districts that have done that for subs have worked over 100 days, but we need to check on that.
So when are we meeting again, Mr. President?
I was gonna get to that after this item, but we can jump ahead.
Well, I
Not
mean,
my
I'll
thought. I'm
Make a
sorry,
motion
Mr.
to
Redondo?
ratify the resolution.
You wanna make a motion?
Let's-
We don't have a
let's
motion
take
at
care of
all
the
yet,
motion.
but-
We don't have a motion,
And
but
then we can.
Yeah, we need a motion to adopt the resolution, then we could modify it.
I will make a motion.
I will second.
So we have a motion by Halsey, second by Cantu, to adopt the resolution that is here before us, providing for the payment of all
All employees, including hourly employees.
including hourly employees, yes. Okay, now, there was a discussion of an amendment?
Well, I guess discussion on the resolution as is before we
All
amend
right,
it.
go ahead.
So if I'm an hourly employee and I'm a bus driver and the hours that I work are kind of fluid, I guess, based on need and demand, what calculation is being used for my upcoming check? If I don't work any hours, what?
30 hours.
That's minimum. So if there are bus drivers who work more than 30 hours historically, but they're going to see, I guess,
But a lot of that, yeah, if they're working over 30 hours, it's because, well, they could have 32 hours occasionally because of that, or they could have 35 hours due to a field trip, which is then paid for by the school, if that makes sense. So our staffing, our payroll is based on 30 hours per employee.
so 30 hours per employee is based on like sorry, you said that, I just want to reiterate. So based on like staffing of what we need bus drivers for bus routes and field trips and things like that, everyone is guaranteed 30, and then there's some based on demand who receive more.
Yes, sir, they're all annualized.
All bus drivers are benefits eligible 30 hours and above, correct? That's how we operate here in the ISD?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I guess my first amendment would be that we pay our bus drivers the paid leave of 40 hours per paycheck during the ISD shutdown.
I have a question about, do we have employees in addition to bus drivers, child nutrition services workers, anybody else that doesn't work 40 hours?
I was just going to do them piecemeal, but I was going to ask
Okay,
child nutrition and custodian
Then I'll second that.
afterwards too. So that would be my motion, is to amend that bus drivers get paid leave reflective of 40-hour work weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry, I might have fallen asleep for a second. I don't think I was asleep, I just missed it. That's not what happens now, they're paid 30? So you want to give them more? Is that the goal?
Mm-hmm.
Like a bonus?
Mm-hmm. Well, not a bonus, I think, as the economics of our community drastically change and as people lose their sources of income, and because I don't know what every transportation employee in the district is facing right now, this is my one opportunity to hopefully shore up some of those financial losses that could possibly be happening. But more than anything, I think it's just the right thing to do given the set of circumstances in our community. So we know ISD bus drivers are guaranteed 30 hours. We know some of them work more based on need and demand across the ISD, rather than saying those bus drivers who work 33 hours sometimes, or 36 hours, or 40 hours, or whatever, should get what they typically anticipate or get under normal circumstances. I'm willing to equalize it across the entire department and provide them paid leave reflective of 40-hour work weeks.
As an amendment to the resolution.
Yes.
I have a question for staff. When you go to 40 hours, what changes for them? Because I know part-time people have so many benefits, and then once you hit 40, then something else changes.
I'll have to defer to Dr. Bias, but I don't think in our case anything changes at all because they're considered basically full-time at 30 with the same benefits that a custodian at 40 would receive. Is that correct, Dr. Bias?
And for how many weeks would we be talking
We don't know.
at this point?
Right now, based on direction from the administration, it's
8?
February 3rd.
Oh,
April 3rd.
April
April
3rd, excuse
3rd?
me.
oh, so it's just for those 3 weeks?
I think the motion, the amendment would, and the resolution doesn't limit pay to the current return date, but authorizes pay throughout a closure. So we won't,
Through
we
the
would not have to
contract.
issue a new resolution on April 5th. This would carry forward. And as would the amendment, from my understanding. I'm just, Ms. Fiapano?
I just want to ask Mr. Arredondo, what is your logic for this? You mentioned something and I don't know.
Yeah, so if I'm a bus driver, I'm guaranteed 30 hours a week. under normal circumstances, the schools are open, picking up kids on bus routes. I have an opportunity to earn more hours if I work field trips, drive to football games, whatever that looks like. Obviously, as proposed, we would guarantee all of these bus drivers paid leave reflective of 30 hours. That is going to be a loss of income for some who have historically worked more than those 30 under ideal ISD circumstances and operations. So rather than saying some employees should get more if they've historically worked more based on the average number of hours worked, I'm saying that all of them should receive pay reflective of 40-hour work weeks
My
or
understanding,
the duration of the shutdown.
my understanding from the past is that we were having to stretch to get some of them to 30, and maybe Mr. Wozniak could speak of this. I remember there were times when they were doing like a campus-based duty a couple years ago that came to us
Security or
to try to get to 30 hours. What is the average hourly week number of hours for a bus driver presently?
So we would still average it at 30. You're right, a couple years ago, it seemed like we had more employees coming in at, they had like 25, 26, and then we would find them that 4 additional hours. This year, for whatever reason, we've had campuses reach out to us and say, can you spare some for lunch duty? Because we were kind of counting on that. We're like, I guess maybe because of the traffic, maybe, there's a variety of reasons that they're all hitting their 30 a little bit better than they were a couple years ago. So we seem to have less extra duty hours this year than we've had in the past. Obviously, some of that's because we're so shorthanded. But on average, yeah, we're still hanging right around 30. And then, of course, like Mr. Arredondo said, the field trips are always a bonus, and that could take you to 38 one week, and you could be back down to 30, and then you could be at 40. So it's just it's such a fluctuation in our business.
Do we know what the average is? I mean, I, like Mr. Arredondo, don't want someone to experience a paid disruption. That's the goal of the resolution, but I also don't want one category of employee to receive, a
That's
COVID
my
bonus.
problem.
So do we know what that is? What the average number is?
I would totally have to get, if we would,
That's the
30 is your
average.
average.
Mrs. Costillo?
Ms. Halsey mentioned, and I know that there's layoffs taking place. Hopefully a lot of these layoffs include pay out there in the community. I think that the school district is taking a great step in ensuring that our employees are going to continue to get their paycheck. And I very much appreciate that. And whatever amount that, if we weren't even going up to that, I would have a concern. But I feel that we're doing all that we possibly can. And by even paying them the amount that they normally work all the time. I know that on field trips and things like that, it comes from those budgets. For instance, I remember the band, we had to pay the bus driver if we used one. I'm very comfortable with just paying the 30 hours, ensuring that they're getting their paycheck. Given the fact that there's so many people out there that are not going to enjoy that luxury, like our employees are.
Ms. Halsey?
So I just need some clarification on a point that was brought up earlier. So say on next Wednesday, we need to bring in some drivers to deliver meals or Chromebooks or whatever it is if we need bus drivers to report. So will those, under the current authorization without the amendment, would those bus drivers be paid additionally for those hours, or they just are already on salary, and how does that work?
Yes, ma'am. Anybody that we bring in receives premium pay, and that's time and a half.
Time and a half.
So they would get their
Regular 30
regular
plus time and a
30
half.
plus time and a half?
For the hours
They
that they
were
worked
brought
would
in.
be time and a half.
Come in
And
to
then,
work.
let's
I
say
know, but I'm saying, is it time and a half on top of the 30? Like,
Just the half.
It's just the half.
Time's
The half
compensated, you
is
gotta
the
get the extra.
top.
So I believe what you're asking is how you break the hours out. If they work 10 hours and only 10 hours, they receive 20 hours at their base pay, and then the 10 hours that they work are at time and a half.
Time and a half.
It's
So
premium pay.
for the bus drivers, for example, if a bus driver next week came in and worked 10 hours, they would be paid for 40 hours.
No, ma'am, they'd be paid for 30 hours, which is what they're guaranteed under this current
Yes.
arrangement. 10 of that would be paid at time and a half because we brought them in, and then the other 20 would be what the resolution provides for a total of 30 hours.
I thought it was 30
But
plus
that's what
the
I'm
10,
right.
plus the time and a half for 10.
No,
So you're
resolution provides
maxing
for
it
their-
at 30
It's
regardless.
whatever gets them to 30.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes, sir.
So they're guaranteed 30 under the resolution. Again, if they come in and work 10, 10 of that 30 would be time and a half at premium pay. The other 20 that we're guaranteeing them would be at their base hourly rate.
Right, and I think because we're going to be asking them to go above and beyond in certain situations, certainly in the coming weeks, that going up to the 40 hour is totally appropriate.
But I thought that if we pay them the 30, whatever extra work they do would be over the 30. That's
It
the
would be
way.
more money to them, right?
It'd be
It's
more
not that it
money
would just
for
be
them.
No,
half
it's
of
saying
their
that
rate.
if they work 10 hours, then it's 10 of the 30 that we're guaranteeing them.
At time and a half.
See, it didn't-
Right, so their wage plus a half.
No, we
If they come in next week. If they're of immunocompromised status, then they're getting 30 hours a week. And if the intent is for them to stay home, I mean, I just think given the circumstances, given the climate that we're in, economic and otherwise, the ISD has the resources available to it for at least until what the district has advertised as a shutdown till the 3rd of April. We should be able to guarantee this to this category of employees, with the understanding that I'm going to make the similar motions for custodians and maintenance employees as well.
But be clear on what you're doing. It's not funny money, it's taxes, right? So you're gonna tax the people that have been laid off in our community extra to give a bonus to our employees who we're already providing no pay disruption to. That's the net effect of your ideas. I'm gonna take taxes from you who've lost your job, and I'm gonna give extra money to this person who works for the government.
I understand that because you're probably going to vote against this, you're going to create a narrative of why this is detrimental to the taxpayers. If necessary, I'm willing to say that these funds come directly from fund balance if you want to talk about taxes, because we've already taxed our taxpayers to generate a fund balance of $43 million. We've taxed them for generations to create a fund balance of that size and that magnitude. So they've already been taxed. The money's in the bank account. The ISD has chosen not to spend it. So if we want to talk about what tax dollars are available to the people that we've taxed, we have 42 million of their tax dollars in our ISD's fund balance.
Their tax dollars.
Yes.
All right. So we got an amendment from Arredondo. I think everybody understands it. All in favor? All opposed? And Hanson was opposed, so that dies 2-5. You said you had another amendment, Mr. Arredondo?
Yes. What are our custodial service employees going to be guaranteed under this paid leave situation?
Pay at 40 hours.
Paid 40 hours? Okay. Same thing with not transportation, maintenance?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What about child nutrition workers?
Child nutrition has a variety of employee hours. Mike, I'm pretty sure you have some at 40, but
Managers are
You said earlier, time and a half. for
8
those that work.
hours, they're 40-hour week. Regular child nutrition specialists are 7 hours a day, 35 hours. We do have 4 floaters at 5 hours, and we have 2 to 3, I couldn't, though, Brandon, part-time at 4 hours
A day.
a day. So all the managers are 8, regular full-time child nutrition specialists 7, 4 floaters that go from school to school as needed, 5 hours, and 2 to 3 part-timers at 4 hours each.
But you said earlier that anybody that was called in to work was being given time and a half.
yes, ma'am. I believe the question was about hours. If I misunderstood, I apologize.
And I have another bit of good news. We will
They're not
start
gonna receive-
Monday at Allenwood and CM Allen. I talked to Gene Martin, and we're going to go there Monday morning.
But even if they're getting paid time and a half, they're not going to receive any more payment than they would regularly.
No.
People will be
No, they
paid for
would, if
the
they're
hours
time and a
they traditionally work.
Work, yeah.
So
Right.
if they're scheduled as a 35-hour employee, they'd be paid for 35 hours. If they're scheduled for,
Right, so if
No.
Clem and I are both in the same category, and I have to stay home, and I get paid X, and Clem is able to go and do whatever she's called in to do, to deliver meals, to put together meals, whatever it is, and she goes in, and then does she get paid X, or does she get paid X plus Y?
She gets paid time and a half. It's called premium pay, and that's what a DEA local provides for.
Right, I
I would
understand,
get
but
more money than you would.
Yes,
under this resolution,
under our board policy.
Wouldn't she get like 6 or, stand up?
so I will be paid for 30 hours, but say she does the extra work, so then she would make the comparable of 40 hours.
Extra money.
No, ma'am, the hours stay the same. You're guaranteed for the maximum number of hours that your position provides for.
Her hourly rate is gonna change compared to yours. So
I would still make more money.
stay at home and you'll get 30 hours.
Yeah, I want that money.
And two will work 10 hours at a little higher rate, time and a half, then all your 30 hours are gonna be one set hourly rate. Clem's, 10 of those hours are gonna be at a premium, the other 20 are gonna be at your hourly rate, so her pay is gonna be a little higher.
Right, okay, thank you.
Which is fair.
Okay, other questions?
Then I'd like to make a motion that we amend this to include compensation for substitutes who have worked at least 75 days in the district up until this point.
Second.
And the compensation can be figured out at the discretion of how we compensate them at the discretion for the next, until April 3rd, at the discretion of administrators.
Second.
Okay, we have an amendment by Halsey, seconded by Arredondo. Any questions or discussions about the amendment? Mr. Arredondo.
So it was referenced earlier in this conversation that we need to look at what this ISD is doing in regards to paid leave as maybe like a favor, or this is already like above and beyond what we should do. This at the very least is the minimum of what we should do as a large employer, as the 5th largest employer in our community, as huge industries are, critiqued heavily by the public for not offering paid leave to their employees in their other circumstances. I think a pandemic is one that it is a no-brainer to provide paid leave to our employees. So I really hope that some of my colleagues who might perceive this as like a favor or like above and beyond what even we should be doing, please reflect on that. I think, again, at a minimum, this is what the ISD should do to ensure that our employees have a continuity in lifestyle through an unidentified ISD shutdown.
Sure, but don't paint a false picture. Everybody here supports this resolution, and everybody here wants all employees to receive no pay disruption. No one up here has voiced any opposition to it. I didn't hear anyone say that this was a favor or a gift. Maybe I should roll back the tape, but I didn't hear that myself. This is what we're all supportive of. We're talking about amendments above and beyond the resolution offered, and that's been what we've discussed.
We just acknowledge that some of our bus drivers are going to see a pay disruption from what they've typically earned before.
The HR director said they average 30 hours, and in this resolution, they are paid for 30 hours.
But average means that some of them work 35 hours.
So some employees will see a pay disruption. So it is not false to say that some employees will see a pay disruption. If we based on averages, then
we asked what the average hourly number of hours during this conversation for transportation workers was, and we were given the information that was 30, which is what's provided for them in the resolution. Yeah, you're right, averages work. Some weeks they may work a little more, some weeks they may work a little less, and it was provided us that their average was 30. And then some of them may come in and work during the disruption and receive a higher rate of pay than they would have received in normal operations. But the goal of the resolution, which was unanimously supported and provided by administration, was that no employee experience any pay disruption. So it's not fair to say, I as an individual trustee it's unanimous, we all want that. You don't support a different resolution than us. You offered an amendment, which some folks disagreed with, but nobody said the resolution of providing consistent pay, no pay disruptions was a gift. Nobody said that. This is what everybody wants to do. It's the right thing to do by our employees, and it's what good employers should do, and we all support it, not just you.
So this
Other questions on the amendment?
So this resolution is only through April 2nd?
Third.
3rd?
I believe it's intended to cover any time the school is closed for the duration of the closure.
So if it goes 8 weeks, then this resolution would serve for the 8 weeks.
Ultimately through the end of the year, the school year.
And so what the administration is recommending is for the 8 weeks to pay everyone, but y'all did not include substitutes on there.
That's correct. And Mrs. Halsey's,
Ms. Halsey, thanks.
Miss Halsey's, or Ann Halsey's, amendment offers that the substitutes would be paid, I'm not really sure on what scale or, and what number, but that they would be paid at administration's discretion.
At administration's discretion, if they've had 75 days up until this point.
Okay, everybody, any other questions on the amendment? All right, all in favor? Opposed? And a no from Hanson, so that fails to carry. Any other offered amendments to the underlying resolution? Seeing none, it's definitely been discussed. We can vote on the underlying resolution, which carries no amendments. All in favor? That's 6 of us. Yes, 7 with Ms. Hanson. Motion carries unanimously. Let's talk briefly about scheduling before we adjourn. Presently scheduled to meet on the first Monday of April for agenda prep.
April 6th?
It is my preference that in light of everything that's going on, we convene an emergency meeting on Saturday, a week from Saturday, after the first full week of school at 10 a.m. electronically. Juan has given me some guidance on how we can convene without being in this room, which seems, especially by then, to be the safest thing for all parties, and it doesn't take administration and key folks out of their normal, it's going to be a crazy week trying to transition to distance learning. But I don't want to just do that unilaterally. I wanted to make sure that y'all would be available with some sort of internet access at 10 a.m. on Saturday, the 28th.
28?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, Mr. President.
All right.
Do you anticipate at that time that we would be voting on whether or not we will actually hold the elections in May?
I don't know. I hadn't thought through that yet.
Could you consider putting it on the agenda?
Yeah, I had agreed that that would be on the agenda for April, at our early April meeting, but yeah, if we cancel the April meeting, I guess I would move it up as an item. I just know that's an issue of public concern, an election, and I don't want to exclude them because we're meeting at this one time, on the internet. But maybe if we can figure out a way to provide a public forum on that, I don't know.
The city just called their election for May the 2nd. It's in
You're
papers
right.
today.
But yes, I can make sure that that's something we can handle in the emergency meeting. Juan told me we had broad discretion as long as it was within the guise of the emergency. The election seems like maybe if it's unsafe, that would fall within it. So can I get some guidance and get back to you on that?
Yes, please.
And then I won't cancel a meeting until we've answered that question, because if we don't handle it in the emergency meeting on Saturday, the 28th, we would need to convene in April to deal with that issue.
Okay, and my other question is, I understand that Saturday is convenient for a lot of people. I would ask the administration, though, if they would prefer to meet on Friday Friday morning or Saturday, because y'all have been working for like 8 days straight already. And so by the time we get to next Saturday, if we have the ability to give people a little time and space at home with their own families, I think that would be great. So
Mr.
entertain that
Superintendent,
conversation.
What do y'all?
you have
prefer?
I thought that made it easier on y'all, but I shouldn't speak for you. If you'd rather do it Friday, we'll do it Friday.
I'd rather do it on Friday than Saturday.
Okay, well,
We just need to know so we can get it posted by either.
right. All right, so
Mr.
what do
McLaughlin?
we think, colleagues? Friday afternoon or Saturday at 10?
I'm fine with Friday.
I'm fine with Friday, too.
Is there a preference for Friday?
I don't work.
I can take off my work.
Is it better in the morning at 10 or later in the evening?
Maybe like an afternoon.
Whatever, I mean,
Friday
I'm,
at 5?
If it's
I mean,
Friday, then, yeah.
when it works for you,
Friday
Okay
at
with
5.
Friday afternoon?
Friday at 5? I mean, sorry, y'all might have to stay an hour after, but.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be long. I'm hoping that, okay, so we'll do it Friday at 5. We'll get a notice out.
You're talking about the 27th.
I am.
Yes.
And the things that, yes, the things that I'd like to make sure we get updates on, Mr. Superintendent, or I was hoping by then we would have an accurate census, well, I shouldn't use that word because that means a lot right now, but an accurate identification of specific students who do not have internet access. Because I was thinking the teachers have got to make contact with all these kids. They should be able to filter that to their principal, which should come to the central administration. And at that meeting, I would like to know, you know, I don't need their names, but I want to know you know their names. Yeah, and then that way we can make any sort of supplemental allocation to deal with Wi-Fi or whatever we're going to do. And then I think Ms. Halsey had asked, and it hadn't yet been answered, but what we were doing with counseling and mental health services during this disruption, and an update on the ever-evolving food service plan of what Mr. Boone would be doing in that week to come. You know, you'll be through your first week, you'll have early numbers, that feedback would be important, and then whatever, that way we can allocate any resources necessary for you to go as broad as you're ready at that point. And then I would like additionally, this is the last thing I have, and then if other folks have stuff, but I'm unclear on special education. And I know that that's developing, and it's everybody's asking the same questions, but I'm hoping by that meeting we can understand if, I mean, when I understood Commissioner Marath had even discussed the potential of some category of special education kids still going to a campus. And I don't know where we are on that, so if we could know by that meeting or get an update of what you know by then, that would be great. Is there other items? Mr. Arredondo? Let's just go down the line if we can. Mr. Arredondo?
Yeah, thank you. So Mr. McLaughlin made a reference to, I think, you know, our teachers are going to be at the front lines checking in with these students, obviously not only delivering like instructional services, but also if using them to capture, do they need Wi-Fi? Is their one-to-one device working? So on and so forth. How are breakfast and lunch going? Like, do you have access to that? Like, do we need to take that into consideration? Obviously, those initial interactions will give every department kind of a better grasp on what we might need to be doing for the next 8 weeks as we all go through this together. I think that for me would, I guess, offer some assurances that, you know, we've said we've talked to every ISD student and their parents electronically. We've asked them about Wi-Fi connections, one-to-one accessibility, food service operations, are the current drop sites or whatever modes of distribution working for them or not. Then that would put me at ease in regards to those concerns. Similarly, I'd like an update on how many of our employees have, you know, been put on paid leave or on paid leave, and then what those vacancies look like for the ISD. I know, you know, this is a unique opportunity for like maintenance and custodial services to do a lot of the things inside of the schools that typically can't get done when children are in session and on campus. So obviously, if we have those employees in those roles on paid leave, I hope we would be hiring those temporary employees as authorized by the board to work on those maintenance work orders and things of that nature that typically can't get done because of ongoing school operations.
Ms. Halsey?
In addition to taking up the matter of May elections, as I've already stated, I would like to receive an update from Cabinet on how, if any, day camps that we are running in collaboration with other entities throughout the community. And I would also like to receive an update about how we are employing our substitute teachers, or how we might employ them or remunerate them in the event of a long-term closure.
Ms. Kim,
I heard y'all say that y'all were going to be in communication with regard to the career hours that people trying to get certification, like in cosmetology, and you said y'all were going to be in communication. I'd like some feedback on that.
Mr. Bondo, you have anything? Ms. Castillo?
I just would like an overall update of all the things that we discussed today, Mr. Superintendent and your staff, and I think that you probably are more than willing to provide that. However, I also would like to get back some feedback regarding the collaboration with the city in regards to the feeding of all the sites, and maybe we can collaborate with the city as far as cost is concerned. I think somebody mentioned that there had been some discussions already. Could you please provide an update on that? But overall, I just want all the things that we talked about, academics, everything that's going on. I just like to get a complete picture of all the things that we talked about in regards to the shutdown and student learning and everything else.
Okay. Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. I think this is the last request for information and guidance I'm going to need from the administration. So it's my understanding that the governor, in light of the current public health crisis and in an effort to promote social isolation, has given local jurisdictions the authority to postpone their upcoming May elections. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts to that. First, I'd like to hear from Hays County whether they're even interested in facilitating those, staffing those, opening up those locations in the community, if they think it's even feasible. Given the first set of circumstances, I'd like to hear from our legal counsel, Juan Cruz. Obviously, we have some legal obligations on our end based on some Supreme Court decisions that may or may not impact our ability to do that. And obviously, that might even be an opinion from the Attorney General to weigh in on what the governor's proclamation, whether that supersedes or circumvents or creates whatever environment for us to take action on. Fourthly, it's my understanding that the city of San Marcos had been considering to have a May 2nd special election to fill their unexpired Council Place 5 position. I'd like an update at this special called meeting of whether or not the city had chosen to move forward with that election, and if they have chosen not to, what was the rationale from the city of San Marcos to delay it until November?
Okay.
I have a question before we adjourn, sorry. I would like to get one last update from the superintendent on the communication plan going from this moment forward. Like what will parents, we got the notifications on Monday. What happens now? What will parents receive this afternoon, tomorrow?
Yeah, so I'm currently working on an update and I have it broken down by child nutrition, online learning, at-home learning update, and then a human resources update, so our staff is aware of what's going on as well. Those are the three major components that I was going to share with you today.
So will there be a press release going out that announces what the district is doing comprehensively and then specific those itemized things, or will that be a comprehensive, are you envisioning one full?
So what I do is I usually send the letter that I send out, I send it to families, or to staff and families first, and then 30 minutes later I send it to our media outlets. I want our staff and families to get the information before the media is sharing it on their outlets, just so that they hear it from us and not from the media. So that's the plan moving forward. Send this out as soon as I can wrap this up, and then send it out to the media, and then add it to our website as well.
Terrific, thank you. And I also just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Fernandez, for the excellent job that you're doing in the communications. And especially during a time like this, I think it becomes really clear why we need that role.
It's a team effort, definitely a team effort.
Yeah, so I just as we exit, SMCISD just announced that they're going to be offering curbside meal services to their students, so maybe if we can give them a call and see what they're doing up the road. I know as we talk about the logistical challenges here and things of that nature, it sounds like they might have a plan, or maybe we realize we don't want to do what they're doing. But anyway, just point of information.
Mr. Ipano?
Oh, I'd like to extend what Ms. Halsey said to the whole staff. I think that the staff is doing a marvelous job. Everybody, I'm really thankful for all your help and answering our questions and putting up with everything that we have to ask. So
I think the board should applaud
Yes.
our administration and all the people that are working so hard for us.
Just to let you know that Gene Martin has agreed to do Allenwood and CML. We'll start there Monday.
Awesome.
That's great.
I'm
Awesome.
probably going to wait till Tuesday to start Mendez, just because we have Monday planned out and see how it goes. But the guy at Hayes, I forgot more about food service than he knows, so.
Okay, well, thankfully that wasn't on the mic. Mr. Boone, I think at Minda specifically, if you and Mr. Wozniak could determine if there was a safe way to facilitate a walk-up, that's a campus that I would expect a significant walk-up on. They have a walk-up to school that, that people can reach, and that would give them one place one campus that was offered they didn't have to drive to if they didn't have a car and they were within walking range. But I don't know, I only want you to do if it's safe, but if there's a safe, they have a walk-up at HEB, and, they just manage the crowd and have so many in the space at a given time, but.
I also think, please ask us to volunteer. I'm very capable of doing many jobs, so please.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I think so.
We have a motion to adjourn.
I can't drive the bus, but I can learn.
By Villapando. Motion and a second to adjourn have been offered by Cantu and Villapando. All in favor? All right, that's it. Thank y'all.